Hello. Welcome to my stream. Today we have a game with an unrelease date. It was supposed to come out on April 10th, but it didn't. So yeah, there's been no release date. I've waited a month. It's already out on Steam, so it's not like this is no one else can get this at any platform. But we're playing it on Xbox today. But yeah, I had hoped that, you know, we would have an updated release date. But I do not have one. Do not have a release date. What I can tell you is that it is developed by Trinitite team and published by Viridian Software. It is an ID at Xbox game, so thank you to ID at Xbox for the code for this one. It also has some licensed Doctor Who character, I think, from what I was randomly reading on a Wikipedia, which is intriguing, from one of the earlier Doctor Companion spin-offs. It originally came out in May 2021 on Steam, and it'll be out on Xbox, Switch, and PlayStation at some point. There is currently not a release date. Well, actually, it says the 31st of December this year, but I'm figuring that's just a placeholder. But anyway, it's a mystery thriller visual novel featuring line search and jump functions. Okay, that's less exciting than when I was reading it out. During a gem exhibition in the rural town of Yushibana, smoke floods the building, activating emergency shutters that trap 8 people inside. With no way out, they must find the truth behind the imprisonment and grapple with an increasingly complex series of unnatural events. So yeah, can you unravel the tangled events within the sealed tower? So it sounded very cool. There's one of the screenshots has a little map. Yes. So the Ashia family holds much of the wealth in this rural town. After they discover a rare gemstone, a showing is scheduled in Ashia Tower, drawing the attraction of many of the town people. And then it's during the exhibit that the tower is flooded with smoke. And then they have 12 hours until their release, and they must grapple with an increasingly complex series of unnatural events. But yes, I can't really tell you much more, other than it was supposed to come out in... Wait, hang on. Was it also supposed to come out in October? Just have a quick... Oh my gosh, yeah, so October 10th last year it was announced. And then... it was also re-announced for April 10th, same day as Blueprints. But yeah, it's not officially out, so that's been delayed twice. So I don't know if there are going to be any issues with the game. So just bear in mind that this is not officially released yet on Xbox. But it just sounded very intriguing, and I was definitely like, I want to play a little bit. Carnage has also played some, so, you know. They have got an 800 gamer score, 8 of the 10 achievements. So there are 2 that they've not, that Carnage hasn't unlocked, but they have been unlocked by someone on Xbox. Oh, there's a streaming policy. Okay, we should probably check that. Ah, okay. Alright. We've got no problem with full playthroughs. Cool. So it's not like Raging Loop, where it had a point where it said, please don't stream the game past this point, but it's just got some license tracks that may trigger copyright stuff. That's fine. We're used to that. We just... well, it depends on how it affects, but we can mute out background music on YouTube, and on Twitch it should be fine with the stream, and we record locally anyway, so that should be okay. But yes, I forgot to say hello to everyone. Okay, so welcome in Subterfuge. You would survive in Forza the longest, provided you make it out of turn 1. Hey, Mr. Cornus and Circle Lead and Akash. Welcome in, everyone. So yeah, it's a visual novel, which intrigues me. Oh, dark and sprites when not speaking. Cool. Voices by the minimap. Oh, it's got a minimap. We're not going to skip. We are going to turn down the music a little bit, just because music can be a little loud. Text, fade out on sprite. Let's just leave that. Time format, 24 hours. Yes, please. Colored speaker. Symbol. Okay. Wow, look at just how pretty they are. I'm also a bit fascinated by these. According to the description, this one found a week ago at 14:30 in the nearby mountains. Ooh, okay. Do we actually want at 2:30 p.m.? Honestly, when people are talking, I think 12-hour time. When we're doing other stuff, I prefer having 24-hour. Okay. Alright, so right click to hide the user interface if you want to take a screenshot. Game menu. Search menu. Ooh, lots of different bits. Okay, I think that's good though. Okay, so let's give it a go. I've got my tea. We're all good. Hopefully everyone else is okay. December 15th, 2011. Okay, the first achievement is completing chapter 1 by the looks of it. I'd been mindlessly staring at the wall in front of me for a few minutes. When that finally registered, I slowly spun around. I'd always thought I'd be quick at adapting to sudden changes. But I'd recently realized how mistaken I'd been. Still unable to process everything, my brain kept struggling to accept that the previous few days had really happened. I wasn't familiar with the walls around me. But I'd always known of the place. Next to me was Shiroya, less willing to acknowledge her surroundings. Keeping her gaze on the floor, she suddenly spoke for the first time since we'd entered. Okay. Alright, sorry, just trying to get my mic straight. It was wonky. There we go. It's straight now. Yeah, don't ask what's going on with my hair. I washed it and it's gone all floopy. I think I'll be timed soon. Yeah, probably less than 20 minutes. That was all I managed to muster, even though I was still the same Atsuki as always. It felt like I'd been rewritten into a entirely different entity in only a few days. ... I didn't try to say anything else. During the previous 2 weeks, I'd grown accustomed to these brief interactions with Shiroya. After I spoke, the lost look in her eyes returned. We had both agreed to come together, but it seemed like neither of us knew what we were doing. Excuse me. We kept awkwardly scanning the vast hall, moving forward tiny steps at a time and waiting for their instructions. Neither of us had any strength. I'd known Shiroya for more than 15 years, and not once had she looked so empty. On top of everything, I hadn't been able to make her feel any better. Despite that, at almost 9 AM, we were inside a shared tower. Biggest building in Nishibana, the town where we'd always lived. It was situated on the outskirts, and we'd never entered it before. From the outside, the tower's contrast with its surroundings was immense. Beyond all the similar-looking houses, its sides made it visible anywhere in the town. It was that contrast which had caused it to be called a tower, but it was only as big as an urban building. The structure itself was more or less a cube, essentially as wide as it was tall, but seemed towering to people who had spent their whole lives in a rural area. So yeah, we're just straight in, no context, but that's fine, because we will understand what's going on at some point, I hope. And hopefully everyone's doing okay. It's Sunday. I'm not quite sure how that happens each time. Suddenly it's Sunday again. I'm, despite the yawning, fairly awake and had a walk this morning. Got outside, It wasn't too bad. But then I washed my hair because, well, I went outside. And then I have just been watching Star Trek Lower Decks, which is cool because it started. I was watching Strange New Worlds, and then suddenly Lower Decks was in it, and I'm like, oh, there's a crossover episode. So now I've got to watch Lower Decks to catch up, otherwise it's going to be confusing. And also playing Sticky Business, which I've just got 2 achievements left in because I'm trying to finish off games. Because finishing off games is good. I should be doing my random to-do list, but I'm not this month. I've got 5. I figure that's, an effort. Excuse me. But yeah, this one looked intriguing. I don't know whether it's, Zero Escapee or just, an intriguing visual novel, but I figured, I would like to play it, and it's been tried to be released twice, so I'm a little confused why it's not out yet, but we may find out. Anyway, the tower was a place that Shiroya and I had always avoided because of the stigma associated with it. A large portion of the citizens were against its existence due to the people who owned it, and its unnatural size. It's a little loud. Am I just projecting? I wasn't very familiar with the topic. Apparently decades in the past, when the building hadn't been anywhere near as large, it had been the Ashia family's residence. It was known that they were a shady family, but they never suffered any consequences. At the time, they held a silent power over the town, and over the years, it gradually grew stronger. They became the image of Yushibana. Anyone visiting from the outside knew about that family before anything else in the town. Over the years, the old residence transformed into a focal point for business and tourism. I'd never immersed myself in the matter, but that was common information I couldn't even recall where I'd heard first. The place was a sort of museum, and behind it extended a mountain range that encircled Yushibana. It was known for housing numerous caves that held valuable gemstones, so enthusiasts tend to visit it often. The Ashia family had taken advantage of it and utilised their building as a gallery for the different gemstones that could be found in the nearby mountains. And when that happened, the part of the town in favour of the tower strengthened due to the increase of people who specialised in those gemstones. That was what caused a split in the population. The younger residents generally didn't mind Ashia, while the older maintained their private discontent. That was why we'd never entered it, and on top of our more recent circumstances, I thought Shiroya might have been experiencing a feeling of betrayal simply for being there. While I couldn't say I shared that strong of an emotion towards it, I wasn't very fond of the whole thing either. ... The reason why we went inside wasn't one I could easily put into words. There'd been constant publicity about the day's event for 2 weeks. According to Ashia, they were going to showcase a major discovery, one found in the very same mountains around the town. But that wasn't something that particularly interested me, and I wasn't sure what to expect. The reason we'd come to the tower wasn't anything as simple as curiosity. Story time with Joe. Yeah. I'm intrigued. I don't know whether there's going to be sort of a time loopy type situation, whether it's roguelike where we retain information, or whether it's just a visual novel where you can make different decisions. Either way, we will find out. Oh, sorry. I keep yawning. I do apologise, this is not the game. ! Yawn will increase the yawn count and say this. No, it's not the game, I'm just tired. And weirdly, when I sit down to play visual novels, I do start yawning more, and I don't know whether that's because I'm talking more or just because it's slightly slower paced. I don't know. Anyway. I mean, I'm hoping we get sort of a Zero Escape, Raging Loop, Danganronpa type, intrigue, where I want to play more of this to showcase it. But yeah, if you want to play it right now yourself, then it is out on Steam. I believe the price has been reduced. I went looking to find out if there was any information on the release date, and I think the price got reduced on Steam permanently. But yes, I don't know when it's coming to consoles. But yeah, I waited a month. Just over a month, actually. Because I wanted to, you know, see if there was going to be another release date, and in which case I'd wait. But I'm impatient, and this sounded fun. So yeah. It was December 15th. Outside, the environment was cold and coated in snow. What I got? Ooh, we got a timer. Interesting. That was not what I was expecting. What did I? Oh, that's scene information. Cool. Into the notes. So you advance through the game, an overview of past events will unlock automatically. Each log entry is comprised of 3 sections. So review past events and write down your own. Oh, I can write down my own notes. So title with an overview. All the important events will be logged the moment you reach them. In the notes section, every entry you can write your own notes. Use it to keep track of important information in your theories. I love putting my theories in things. I mean, I don't like writing on my controller, but, you know, to expand a collapse. Okay. Access the notes. Enter notes here. Okay. Alright, lobby after dark with, right, well, we haven't really done anything yet, but still, that's cool. Ooh. Ah, here we go. I wanted to see if I could see the text again, because also you can search it. That's good. But that wasn't something particularly interested in me, and I wasn't sure what to expect. I forgot to read this bit out. The reason we had come to the tower wasn't anything as simple as curiosity. Right. It was December 15th. Outside, the environment was cold and coated in snow. The temperature inside was regulated. We'd been outside for so long that we still felt unpleasant. I glanced at Shiroya, who didn't return my look. Feeling slightly agitated, I turned a little. I could see a line of people who had come thanks to Ashia's ambitious advertisement. Shiroya and I had been at the front of it for a long time. Next to us was a man I'd never seen before. He was tall and had dark hair, and like us, he seemed distant from everyone else. I hadn't seen him so much look at me, so I hadn't given him a second thought. We were next to him because we would go see the gemstone in groups of 3. Since we'd been the initial 3 to show up, we formed the first group. The entrance fee had been expensive, but we paid it well in advance. From our perspective, it had been worth it. We remained by the door that would open at 9 AM, simply waiting for that to happen. To our left was another door that would open at the same time, and according to what we'd been told, both led to the main floor of the tower. On that particular day, not many people seemed to care about that, as everyone who could be seen was part of our line. For a moment, I wondered what all the big... For a moment, I wondered what the big deal was. Nishibana wasn't a large town, so the amount of people waiting behind us was fairly impressive. All that for a gemstone didn't seem quite right to me. Perhaps it made sense, given it was Ashia's event. They cared about appearances, as anyone could attest. They were in many lines of business, but the most important one was looking good. Apart from the line, the only other people in the lobby were guards talking with a policeman, a woman behind the reception desk checking anyone's tickets, and a janitor who had been scrubbing the same part of the floor for a while. It was all unsettling and alien. The event itself was an abstract thing to me, and my view on the people who ran it was far from positive. All I could do was look at things and wait for it all to start. We'd been asked to leave our phones outside for the duration of our stay, as nothing of the sort was permitted in the building. That meant I had no way of looking at the time. There weren't any clocks on the walls. I mean, this is why I'm quite glad my wrist now has the time on it, though I do often forget it has a time on it. But it's nice. I do tend to keep clocks in every room, but it's nice when I'm out to know what time it is. Because, yeah, I need to know what time it is, because mostly I spend my life not knowing time. Time has no meaning to me. So, yeah. I prefer to have, you know, a chance to you know, have some idea of the passage of time. Because, yeah. But yeah. Adding to the fact the person I was with was clearly uncomfortable and tried to hide it. The long wait has been much more tedious than I'd hoped. I continued looking at her, not knowing how to deal with the situation better. Finally, after minutes of looking down, she suddenly lifted her head as if she just remembered that she was in a public environment. Following behind, she looked at me and seemed to try and smile. But it was barely visible before vanishing again. I kept falling back into negative thoughts. No matter how I tried, I couldn't help that. I needed to be stronger and help lift Shiroya out of the pit she was in. But that was tricky, seeing as I first had to get out of the same one. Sorry. Oh, damn. So I just struggled against my feelings, wishing all the while that I could go back to how things had been before. Minutes later, a well-dressed man who'd been standing near the entrance told us if we weren't waiting for the event, we could go through the left door. Shortly after, a tall blonde woman wearing a suit entered through the one on the right. I'd seen her in a coat earlier before she disappeared through one of the doors. She looked over everyone present and began to explain what the procedure would be. N. Sorry for the wait, everyone. We will now begin the group entrances. My name is Naomi. I'll be chaperoning today's guided visit. As you likely already know, groups of 3 will move forward in turns. Each visit is estimated to take approximately 15 minutes. Once inside, I will personally explain what we've prepared, and I will also be available to answer questions within the specified time. Naomi's explanation was directed at everyone present, but it was hard to believe anyone further back could have heard her. She continued in a monotone voice. Keep in mind that phones and video cameras are strictly prohibited. I ask for all of you to please be patient and await your turn. When her scripted message was over, she relaxed her posture and directed her look at us. You 3 are the first group, correct? Seconds later, nobody had answered. The 2 people at my sides had barely paid attention to her, so I spoke before she would have to ask again. Yes. Alright then, please follow me to the event room to be the first to see the Sekimeiya. Oh yeah, did I actually even say the game title today? It's the Sekimeiya! Spun glass. I probably didn't say it because I don't actually know how to pronounce it. But that's what we're playing today. And I am excited. Even if it is unclear when it is coming out. To be announced. Usually I wait until it has been announced, but not today. But yes, I wish I'd remembered I've forgotten to update the stream title before I went live, because then it was slightly incorrect going live. It's fine now though. And there's a new Agatha Christie game coming out. Cool. I like those. But music. Alright then, yes, okay. The Sekimeiya. I'd heard that word many times recently, but before I could think, she turned around and walked through the same door she'd entered from. I looked to my right to check on Shiroya. Her demeanor hadn't changed, but she was aware of the situation. By the time I turned back, the man on my left had nearly reached the door. It seemed he had taken the initiative, despite his unenthused appearance. Rather, it was probably better to think of myself as lagging behind him, being proactive. Lagging behind than him being proactive. Okay, I can read. I followed, motioning to Shiroya as I did. She approached me, still wearing her heavy-looking coat. We found ourselves in a long hallway. I could see many doors lining each wall. Oh no! Are we in the hallway? Are they locked? Do we have to find the lever? I had to take a break from blueprints. It was consuming my life. I will get back to it. But yeah, I was getting a little bit addicted. And I didn't want to burn out on it and then not be able to finish it. So, yeah. Some opened and connected by a decorative handrail. However, there are no traces of Naomi or the man. The floor seemed pointlessly wide. Up to the end of the hall, I could see a number of security cameras hanging from the ceiling. As we started walking, unclear about where to go, I found it appropriate to try and toy with Shiroya again. Are you feeling better? Oh, yeah, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. She continued walking, assuming that was the end of our exchange. I tried to press a bit further. Do you regret coming? No, of course not. I'm seriously glad we're here, I mean it. I know how you feel, okay? It's the same for me. It doesn't help a lot to say it, but I don't want to see you sad. Ooh. Didn't mean to hit that, but yeah. I'm here because I want to be Atsuki. I'm okay. This is where I need to be right now. Sorry, I must look terrible. She wasn't being very convincing. You know, this isn't something you need to apologize for. Nothing about this is your fault. I'm not sure. I'm not so sure. I wish it didn't have to be a drag for you now. Hey, come on, if you want to leave, we still can. Don't feel like you have to push yourself for my sake. It's alright, thank you. Let's continue, though I was the one who wanted to come. I feel like some backstory here that I need. Okay. We'd hoped coming to the exhibition would be for the better. Once it was settled that we wouldn't back out, I looked around shyly until a voice calling for us came from the middle of the hallway through an open door. Mutium, hurry up, the clock is ticking. Her unprofessional shout broke the silence and drew us forward. I saw her figure in a seemingly empty room. Through the other doors there were cabinets, covered by red cloths. Good, you're finally here, now we can start. Once I went inside, I realised my initial impression had been wrong. The room would have been barren if it weren't for a single cabinet covered by a velvet curtain. The black-haired man was there, yet looking entirely aloof and fixing his eyes on the plain opposite wall. All right, it would be helpful if you could tell me your name, since you know mine. While she said that, she closed the door we'd come through, and I took notice of the security camera in one of the corners, which was fitting for the place we were in. There was another closed door in the opposite wall, so we had 15 minutes ahead of us where we'd be shut inside. Naomi looked at me expectantly, probably because I'd been the one to speak earlier. Atsuki, Hayutoki. Shiroya Mirayana. Without being cajoled, Shiroya just spoke her name. To my relief, she was looking directly at Naomi, and her posture was significantly less stiff than before. The black-haired man didn't respond immediately when we eyed him. And your name? ... Akaro. Akaro Asata. Perfect. Happy to meet the three of you. It was hard to read him. He looked passive, but he must have been interested in the exhibition. Naomi moved aside and placed herself before the velvet curtain. Then she took out a keyring from her pocket as she got ready to begin the introduction. As you might already know, what's behind this curtain is not to be taken lightly, and being the first public viewers is a bigger privilege than you may think. What's being kept here is among the rarest pieces that we've seen, and it's only been 2 weeks since the discovery. We estimate that the value of this cabinet's contents is immense. A proper appraisal has already occurred, but more estimates will come forth as everyone realises just what we have in our hands. Part of the experience is the touch, so I will open the glass and let you experience it yourselves. However, I must insist that you be gentle and keep your hands inside the cabinet at all times. We know and don't need this introduction, so let's move along. You've been praising this find of yours in every advertisement. Let's see how your claims hold up. Akaro's sudden input took us by surprise, but made it clear that he did care about the event. My apologies. Let's start then. Amy put a small key in a lock on the left side of the cabinet and turned it. Admittedly, all the build-up was making me slightly curious, but for all I knew, we were talking about a slightly shining rock, nothing that would ever interest me very much. Let's stop with the teasing. Here's what you've come to see, named the Sekimeiya. With one hand, she grabbed the bottom of the curtain and began to raise it. But even though my focus should have been on the cabinet, something else took priority. When I was least expecting it, smoke rose instead of the curtain, accompanied by a familiar putrid smell that invaded the room. What is this? Without bothering myself to ask questions, I tried to find Shiroya. My right, I saw her face morphing into shock. Tsuki, what? Her last word faded out quietly, and it was then that I realized my consciousness was getting cloudy. All of a sudden, all I could see was very dark smoke filling my field of vision. I couldn't believe it was happening again. Again? Naomi's hand had immediately reached the curtain. She was trying to steady herself while covering her nose. I couldn't find Akaru until I looked down and saw he had already fallen to the floor. The smoke filled up the entire room all at once. In just a few seconds, my legs stopped responding, and all my efforts at getting my muscles to obey me were met with failure. Is this a sequel to something? At last, my entire body gave up, and I plummeted down. Thanks to the view I had from the floor, I could see Shiroya's outcome had not been any different. From the falling noise I heard, the same could be said for Naomi. Behind Shiroya was the door we'd come through. The smoke had covered the ceiling, so everything was dark. Amidst the confusion, I was able to notice the lack of light under the door, something which should have been easily noticeable from such a dark place. When I ultimately accepted there was nothing I could do to salvage the situation, I had a few seconds where I could only think about what was going on. Our room and its surroundings were fully silent. I couldn't hear a thing despite what had happened, and I wasn't able to produce any noise. What the fuck had just happened? I was able to recognize how strange it was. Both doors had been closed, so I had no idea where the smoke had come from. Knowing the smoke was blotting out our awareness, I realized it had been done deliberately, and there were many reasons I could come up with as to why, going off what we'd just been told. As my remaining consciousness faded away, I could only hope I would quickly wake up to see Shiroya again. I wanted to pretend I knew nothing would happen, but the images came back to me, seeing that hole in the floor. My heartbeat slowed and became inaudible. I knew that resisting was completely futile, so I closed my eyes, hoping to fast forward to being awake again. The thought of dying there was pathetic, but without a choice in the matter, I resigned myself to what was happening. Before all my senses faded, the silence was broken by a loud alarm, which had taken a while to be broadcast after the appearance of the smoke. Further in the background, I barely perceived a much fainter and rougher sound that I couldn't identify. I lay on the floor of that smoky room with 3 other people, completely powerless and clueless. Soon after the alarm played, the darkness became absolute and all my thoughts vanished. Chapter 1, Foot of the Mountain. Ooh, that was just a prologue. I've now got the whole Doctor Who crossover thing in my head. And I'm not sure whether I... Okay, so... Alright, it's based... It is in the TARDIS fandom, so I'm just gonna have a look. This is technically a Doctor Who spin-off. Apparently one of the characters, Lyles, first appeared in an anthology book called Down the Middle. In stories that also feature Chris Quaige, a 7th Doctor companion from the Virgin New Adventures novel series that was published in the gap between Classic Who and New Who, and a recurring character in other obscure Doctor Who books. Ooh. On a technicality, Lyles was cameoed in as a Kickstarter reward and isn't part of the actual plot. You can skip her segment entirely and not miss a thing. Okay, so there is a cameo of a Doctor Who character. So yeah, I don't want to read any more just in case. However, Kickstarter, I wonder if the Kickstarter has any information on the console release. Kickstarter is from 2022. Last updated 2022, so probably not. Though it does include console ports. Potentially, if it reached that goal. Yeah, it reached the goal for console ports. "40 hours of mystery." Nice. Developed over 4 years. That's really cool. Let's see if there are any updates. Console ports. PC version runs on a modified version of the RenPy engine. It's pushed to its limits. It's been an arduous task for the porting team. There are lots of bugs and edge cases. Can't concrete release date. That was in 2022 though. So yeah, unsure when that's coming. Officially. I imagine they hit more issues, so, you know. I have technically got an advanced copy. They were sort of ready to launch because certainly didn't get keys last year for this. Because I keep track of which ones are unreleased. In a separate spreadsheet, or which ones the keys aren't valid for various reasons. Anyway, an indeterminate amount of time has passed. I was a complete mess, and constant pain pounded against the interior of my skull. But yeah, this is definitely, you know, this is going to get me intrigued. Like, you know, this is an AI Summoning Files, Zero Escape, Raging Loop Joe game. Nothing had changed apart from the walls and ceiling, which had been tainted by the smoke. As I confirmed I was still in the event room, I tried to battle the intense headache, mercilessly hammering me from the inside, focusing my vision in an attempt to spot Soraya. Shiroya, probably. I keep on calling her Soraya, but anyway, that's her name now. Sorry. If you wanted to tell me how to pronounce them, then, you know, I wouldn't be reading it wrong. That's just my fault, so apologies. There she was, still on the floor. She hadn't moved since I'd blacked out. I used all the energy I could muster to try and rise, and after a few attempts I was able to sit up. While I crawled to Shiroya, I looked behind me. As expected, Akara's body still lay on the floor, but he was far from my first priority. I reached Shiroya and turned her to face me. Her eyes were half open and she seemed conscious, which was exactly what I needed to see. My sentence was cut off by dry coughing that took over my body. It seemed I inhaled a bit of the smoke, but it might have meant we hadn't been unconscious for a long time. Yes, I think so. Her eyes opened fully and she tried to steady herself with an arm. That smoke, was it? Maybe. Listen, we'll try and find out what happened. Just stay there for a minute, okay? Do you feel okay? Yes. I could tell she was barely keeping it together. She must have been afraid of the worst, just like I was. But that time, we'd woken up safely. Okay, you're referring to past events. You have to give me context soon. I looked around me. It was a bizarre sight, and the disgusting smell was still present after the smoke had faded. So we've had... accidentally hit the wrong button there. We had allusion to a reason that they were there that wasn't to see this thing. We had... The smoke has happened before. But if we hadn't looped before, assuming this is a time loop, I love time loop games, then, you know, when did it happen before, and what can you tell us? The room would be painted black, the curtains beautiful red, the walls, the ceiling, they'd all be corrupted by an ugly dark colour, almost purple. The floor, however, had not received the same treatment. It had become grey, but it was nowhere near the strong black that consumed the ceiling. And there was something much more important that I quickly noticed. Horror? Yeah, I love me some time loop games. Naomi's gone. She's not here. What? You're right. Where could she have gone? The door's open. The door we'd not gone through was slightly ajar. Naomi could have woken up and left through it, maybe to understand what had happened after seeing we were still knocked out. Even reaching that small conclusion took a lot out of me, but the headache was beginning to fade almost as quickly as it had come on. I noticed our voices had woken Akaru, who'd still hadn't moved at all. Outer Wilds. I love the game. I hate the flying controls, but that's because I can't figure them out, not because they're bad. But yes, I didn't get to experience the full joy of Outer Wilds because I was terrible at the flying. I think I streamed a bit of it, possibly to illustrate how bad I was at the flying, but possibly because I got a copy of the game and I wanted to stream it? I don't know. I can't remember if I'd done it, but I know I was terrible at the flying. Yeah, I like time loop games. Other than trying to land on the sun. I mean, yeah. There was like the little speedrun achievement in it. I'm like, I can't even get off the stupid planet reliably and land and everything. But, you know, I did at least get to explore some places with like the alien writing and translating some of that, which was fun. But yeah, I wanted to love the game, I just couldn't get into the controls, so I'd be tempted to watch streams of that to, you know, appreciate it more. But yeah, I like the sort of visual novel point and click, like, based games. Because then I can appreciate the story without having to fart around with controls. But that's a me thing. That certainly shouldn't discourage people from doing other types of things. So I guess it's a form of Metroidvania, but just with story. Thinking about it. Ooh. Yeah. I wonder if that would be enough to register a new mechanic. You never got around to Outer Wilds, did you, Mysticalness? Yeah, I know there was 2 games that had very similar names that were 2 completely... Outer Worlds was like a space RPG thing, and Outer Wilds was the, you know, cozy little universe. Oh no, you accidentally triggered something and now the time is going to loop until you figure out how to end it. It's one of the best games you've ever played. Wow. I definitely was enjoying it, I just was terrible with the controls. Really, really terrible with the controls. The best game ever? I'm still obsessed with Blueprints. And a little bit still with Clair Obscura, Expedition 33, but then, you know, recency bias. It's hard for me to pick out games that I love because, you know, I forget about half of them. For no reason other than, you know, my memory doesn't need to store the fact that I played it. It just, if I think about it, I can then recall information about it. There was one with Clocks and Masks that I really, really loved, that I still remember how it works. Outer Worlds or Outer Wilds? Yeah, I was gonna say. 2 completely different things. The universe being one giant puzzle, yeah. I really loved the concept, I just was very bad at the flying. Yeah, exactly, same. I have to try and picture the key art. But yeah, definitely, yeah, haven't played Outer Worlds, I'll be honest. I wanted to, but it just seemed quite big and I wasn't willing to invest in a really big game. But hey. Excuse me. I noticed our voices had woken Akaro, who still hadn't moved at all. Ugh. What the fuck is this? He felt his face with his hand as he grimaced, then he stood up slowly stood up and attempted to balance himself while perplexedly looking around him. Hey, what's all of this? You said Naomi's gone? What the just happened? I think a lot of smoke just suddenly appeared out of nowhere, right? Did it knock us out? The first time he started a conversation with us. Before answering, I began to clean my face, as the smoke had created a sticky mask on it as well. I have no idea, but yeah, that smoke must have had something in it that made us fall unconscious. And a few seconds before I fainted, a very loud alarm went off. An alarm? I must have fallen unconscious too fast. All I remember is getting very dizzy out of nowhere and falling over. I don't think I heard it either. Did it say anything? No, it was only a loud sound. While I was attempting to stand up, Akara walked to the open door and looked through it. Oh, what the hell happened here? It's very dark, but the hallway's condition is the same. The walls and ceiling are black and I can't see anyone. The whole hallway's covered. How much smoke was there? Everyone must have evacuated when they heard the alarm, even though it came a bit after the smoke appeared. So what's everyone playing this weekend anyway? I know there were so many games out last week. Like 30 or so 30 plus new ID at Xbox games. A whole bunch of stuff on Game Pass, which is just, such good value. And yeah, obviously you're playing because there's games that are leaving Game Pass. Humanity, yeah, it's on my list, but I think I own it, so I should be okay. That's the one where you play as the white Shibu Inu, and you have to literally make like the little human lemmings not die. And you also lost in day 2 of a tournament. Sorry to hear that. What were you playing tournament of? Did you see where the smoke came from? I didn't see anything and there's nothing here. Magic the Gathering. Never got into that because I could see it would be a great big time sink and money sink for myself. But it looks like fun. No, but you're right. It surrounded us in an instant and probably appeared in this room and the hallway at the same time. Both of these doors were closed, so the origin had to have been here. Something must have happened while we were unconscious. Why are we alone though? There are police officers outside. Why haven't they come? Arena is free, but definitely time sink. But if you want to it's like a card game, right? If you want to have a decent deck, you need to spend money. I think, right? We couldn't answer. Still a bit disoriented. Forced my neck to turn. The only thing in the room was a covered cabinet. The covered cabinet, though I doubted the Sekimeiya would still be there. The easiest conclusion to reach was that the smoke had been part of an attack designed to steal. Did I just do that? Oops. Steal it. The online version is free. Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I have friends that have entire boxes full of Magic the Gathering stuff, so that's why I understand it was expensive. Hey, Outershine! Sorry, apologies for the yawning. Honestly, I don't know what my body is playing at. I had sleep, I went out for a walk, I got some exercise, I sat down to play a really cool game, and I can't stop yawning. It's not the game's fault, honestly. And I feel really bad that I'm yawning in the game. Something to do with sitting down and relaxing, I guess. The smoke wasn't released in the other rooms in the hallway. Everything was giving me a surreal vibe. I had no idea what was going on, but at first glance, the danger seemed to have faded away. My headache was nearly gone, thankfully. That meant I could start thinking things through. What had happened? Why had it happened? How was I going to find the person responsible? Maybe I was just trying to distract myself from the reality by thinking things like that, but I had a personal stake in it. I couldn't forgive whoever was responsible. Shiraya probably felt the same way. We couldn't just ignore it, and someone was missing. The room was empty, and it had been empty before we'd fallen unconscious. Only the cabinet had been with us, but if the smoke had come out of it, it wouldn't have surrounded us so fast. We had been stained, but not so much on the lower parts of our bodies. The ceiling was very dark, whereas the floor not so much. The smoke's density must have been low. Did that mean the origin of the smoke had been the very centre of the room? That didn't make any sense. Shiraya staggered slightly. I reached out to try and hold her shoulders, but as my body was still recovering, both of us fell back to the floor. Without looking, Sakari walked to the door we'd entered through. It happened to her too. Yeah, when I fell to the floor, I noticed there was no light below that door. Given how dark the room had become, I thought the hallway must have been just as dark. The smoke was released at the same time, even though both places looked empty. What the fuck is this about? That woman disappeared, but she fell unconscious too, didn't she? And you're right, why is no one else here? All these points were very strange. I was still relieved that none of us had been harmed. I lay on the floor for a bit, attempting to gather more strength. When thoughts came to me, it was calming to realise they were different from what had recently filled my head. This room connects two parallel hallways, which were attacked alongside this room all at once. Was this done to isolate us? Someone attacked the building to steal the Sekimeiya, right? That must have been the intention. The smoke formed an easy path for whoever to plan to make their way here, obtain the Sekimeiya, and leave. It sounded like a messy and risky plan. A mesky plan. It's a mesky plan! But it's the obvious thing that comes to mind. The open door seems to reinforce it, even though Naomi must have left through one anyway. Do I have to conclude that Naomi was part of this, and while we were out she took the Sekimeiya and left, pointing this much suspicion at herself? Being a staff member, she'd know many things about the security system and was the first group to come, meaning out of the four, she was the only one that wasn't part of the first visit, coincidentally. Or, I could say that if I knew Akara at all, I did think he looked distant from everything else. But he was unconscious. Maybe Akara was aware of the fact that the smoke would appear. He immediately faked his unconsciousness by throwing himself to the floor, knowing he would avoid breathing anything from the upper half of the room. The fact the floor is barely stained proved the smoke never came down. Once we're all out of it, he obtains the Sekimeiya. I should also consider that the smoke first arose shortly after Naomi unlocked the cabinet. This doesn't mean much, given she'd fall unconscious and leave the key available to be picked up, but if whoever did this didn't know much about the cabinet's mechanism, it makes sense they waited until it was unlocked. But how do they know exactly when that was? Doesn't this mean they must have been inside the room? Or again, doesn't this mean only Akara could have done it? Assuming this precise timing actually happened, how did he trigger the smoke? It simply could be that he gave some sort of signal to someone else outside, but phones aren't allowed in here, so we don't know what time it was either. After we regained consciousness, he seemed to be perfectly fine physically. However, the mass difference between his body and our 19-year-old one's is very noticeable. It makes sense that the substance had somewhat weaker effect on him. Is Akara in possession of the Sekimeiya right now, or did he leave it somewhere? If so, why did he come back? Only not to look suspicious. But this doesn't explain Naomi's disappearance, and how did the smoke appear? Or why did the alarm sound late? And what kind of risky plan is this? I grimaced. I was getting carried away without realising how far I was going. In the first place, it was ridiculous to suspect anyone until I had information, but I knew I could never let things remain as they were. Someone was responsible, and I wouldn't let them get away. I only had to bide my time. Before I could stand, I realised there was another avenue open to me. There was a security camera on the ceiling. But it was covered in smoke, so, if someone was looking at the footage and the smoke came out of an automated system, this would make a lot more sense. Ow. Giant scratch on my arm. However, that doesn't mean that Akara couldn't simply have been the one to wait for the automated smoke to then follow with whatever plan they had. This must have happened during the first visit for a reason. It means that whoever was looking at the direct footage would have been the one to activate the smoke system. I was doing it again, almost like a coping mechanism. I had to make sure Shiraya was really okay before anything else. Ow. When I attempted to lift my head, my body thankfully obeyed. I stared at the curtain that concealed the so-called Sekimeiya. It was dark and the substance the smoke was composed of had dried up on it. Can you stand out? I think so. Supporting each other, Shiraya and I slowly steadied ourselves. Then I realised Akara had gone to the hallway. Whoa! Finally, thank goodness. A shout came from the same area. Finally, thank goodness! A shout came from the same area. It was a feminine voice, which at least indicated we weren't alone. We walked to it slowly as I wiped more of the solidified substance off myself. I was curious to see if the Sekimeiya was still in the cabinet, but we would find that out very soon regardless. The hallway was almost as dark as the room. The smoke had coated every light bulb, but since there were so many of them, sunlight could make it past the barrier. The smoke had created a thorough cover on the walls. Sometimes the smallest things just hurt more than anything. It doesn't even hurt where the scratch is. They've got an invisible scratch and a visible scratch then, clearly. I don't know how I managed to maim myself this time. The smoke had created a thorough cover on the walls and ceilings, which must have been an intended result. It had set up a dark environment, but that couldn't be the sole purpose. Something had been added to the smoke to create the same effect on every surface it touched. Close to the start of the hallway, near the door Naomi had first appeared through, I saw human figures. Our approaching footsteps were noticed by one, and it rose from its knees. We got closer and saw 2 more people kneeling down. Akara was with them, and after finally arriving where they were, I noticed a small body on the floor. Ida's finally waking up, thank God. The woman was the person we'd heard. She had a little girl on her lap, was looking at her closed eyes with concern. I see, so you 3 were not able to evacuate. The person who had stood it was a well-dressed old man. As he said that, the 2 kneeling people turned their heads to face us. But the words "not able to evacuate" had sounded darker than I'd expected, especially due to his rough voice. Is she okay? I think so. She's finally breathing fine. Shiroya sat next to the others and worriedly looked at the girl who'd been called Isla. Next to them was a guy my age who was staring at the girl in silence. I don't know who's talking. This is really unhelpful. I've just got S-E-A. K is the old guy. A must be Akara. S is Shiroya. E would be the lady that... Okay. Notes. Okay, after dark, Akara, Naomi, Shiroya. Alright. Lobby. Hallway doors open at 9, so it was just after 9. Smoke appears and alarm plays. Okay. Just drop a save. We're in chapter cave-in. Okay, we definitely want a symbol. Okay, so, smoke appeared out of nowhere and knocked us out. Do you know what happened? I'm afraid I don't. The event room, right? Shouldn't another woman be with you? Naomi, yes, she was gone when we woke up. So there were 3 of us, and then there's 4 of them, that's 7. Plus Naomi, who is somewhere, that's 8. He looks like a security guard. So possibly a family, possibly mum with kids, and another person. Despite the dim light, I was able to discern his frown. Pretty sure she passed out too, but the door to the other hallway was open when we woke up. She left while you were still unconscious? That's strange. I inspected this floor a bit and didn't find her. Is that strange? Maybe she exited the building entirely. When his look lowered again, I realized there was something important that we were missing. Why was no one else there? Why had the unconscious child not been taken outside at the very least? She couldn't have left. If she fell unconscious like the rest of you, she has to still be here. What? The man didn't answer immediately, so I took that time to look him over. Due to the lighting, I'd got the impression that it was a simple, well-dressed old man, but those weren't casual clothes. Did all of you hear the alarm that played throughout the building? After I heard it, I saw all the smoke. These words made me consider an important detail. His shirt was white and a lot less stained than ours, indicating that he hadn't been hit by the smoke during its release. In contrast, the woman and the other guy had the same smoke pattern we did, being more stained on their top halves. The statue of the child made her face the main target. I am responsible for this building's security system. When the smoke appeared, I was in the security room, found in the other hallway. Since today was a special day, most of the villagers were in the lobby awaiting their turn for the event. They had no problem leaving safely when they saw the smoke. You might know that this tower has many floors, but only this one is open to the public and no one was in the higher levels. It was a big shock to see all that smoke, so I panicked and spent a while in the security room trying to figure out what had happened. When I realised I couldn't get anywhere, I exited and began searching through this floor. It seems you all were the first 2 groups of 3 for today's event. Yes, we were told to wait here after the first group moved forward. Oh, that's right. I remember seeing her earlier now that I look at her closer. I also recalled seeing the three of them behind us in the lobby. I was still trying to understand the man's words, though, as he had said the security room was in the other hallway. At the same time... Oh, someone's cooking something that smells really nice. I don't know what it is, but it's making me hungry. Still tried to understand the man's words, though, as he had said the security room was in the other hallway. At the same time, we kept cleaning the smoke off our bodies until only a few traces remained. You said you saw the smoke, but your clothes are much cleaner than ours. Did it not hit you? That's right. I didn't leave the room while it was in the hallway. When I said I saw the smoke, I was talking about the security cameras. Oh, I see. So he was the person I just accused in my head. I wasn't able to figure anything out through the cameras, unfortunately. When I left a few minutes later, I saw the walls were black. I knew he was slowly giving me information, so I didn't want to interrupt him. However, more questions were coming to my mind, such as why hadn't he come across our group first? Wait, you saw what the hallway looked after when you left the security room? Didn't you have enough security cameras to see it from there? Couldn't help from asking more details. Couldn't help myself from asking more details. The more I tried to coast through things, the more I resisted it. I needed to know as much as possible. No, the thing is, they become useless after the smoke appeared. It instantly covered the lens of every camera that was hit by it. Makes sense, and this is why the smoke created this film on every surface it touched. It worked to disable the cameras. Yes, while I was there, I had no way to know what was happening in the hallways or the event room. I took my time to look at the footage of all the other rooms, but I didn't see anything suspicious at all. No people either. But I should get into what's most important. The alarm that played wasn't your usual emergency alarm. It was one I hadn't played before. I said that I stayed in the security room out of panic, but that's not all. Even if I'd left, it would have been pointless. One of the special functions of the alarm is to shut down all methods of escape. This means we have no way to leave this building and that people outside can't enter. Although I'd been kind of anticipating these words, it was still a heavy blow. Shiroya and I looked at each other. It seemed everything insisted on getting worse. Hang on, what the fuck? You're saying that we're trapped here? How long does it close the exit for? Why? Is there no way to undo it or contact the outside? It closes all the exit routes for 12 hours. The reason as to why is a bit complicated, and for our purposes, confidential. I'm sorry, but I can't get into that. It does mean that if someone's stolen that jewel thing, they can't get out. As for a way to contact the outside, there should be one. We can try it. Shiroya wasn't faring well, and Akara seemed to be in complete disbelief of what he was hearing. Hey. Hey, Horror. It's going to be fine, okay? Yeah, okay. I turned back to the others. Barring Akara, none of them seemed very surprised about the situation. Is this not a shock for you? I already told them. Getting Isla out of here would normally have been the first thing any of us would have done. It didn't seem like the type of building to have medical equipment stored in it, so the woman must have immediately tried to extract whom I can only assume was her daughter. There was no reason to think that some secret entrance existed, so I more or less had to assume that we really were trapped for half a day. The existence of such an alarm seemed absurd, but at first glance it may have also succeeded in trapping whoever had been responsible for the smoke. So you're right, Naomi has to be here. Is that it? I get that most people were in the lobby, but if someone else had entered the hallways, they couldn't have evacuated either. Is it possible the smoke in the hallway wasn't as dense, which gave people time to run from it before the alarm went off? Okay, that is someone who is indicated by some sort of Greek symbol that looks like a fork or a chandelier. No, that can't be. The guy who'd remained quiet finally spoke. We were right here when the smoke appeared. The moment we inhaled a bit of it, we were out like a light. We pretty much collapsed instantly. I see. Then I couldn't tell you. From what I could see, the other rooms in the hallway were clean. If someone had been in one, they had to have been trapped too. I could recall that the alarm had played approximately 20 seconds after the smoke's appearance, but it was unlikely that it had been enough time for it to totally dissipate. I can't believe what you're telling us. What the fuck does this mean? Why are we trapped here? I sincerely apologise. I'm confused as well. But there's nothing I can tell you. We'll have to be here all day. But I'll try and figure out what happened. My name is Katai Kuchi. It was ridiculous, but we couldn't fight it. After a period of silence where nobody knew how to react, the woman spoke. She's Isla, my daughter. She's been unconscious since the smoke appeared, but her breathing's steadier now. I'm Irina. I'm Shiroya. And my name's Atsuki. We came here together. How old is she? She'll be 10 in more than a week. Her birthday is 2 days before Christmas. Realising the rest of the group had introduced themselves, the guy followed. I'm Sai. We looked back at the man separated from us. Karo. Immediately the silence returned. What the hell had happened? I thought back on the wordless alarm that had locked us in. It had lacked a message, seeming only designed to tell us we'd been trapped. It made sense if the culprit was one of us, but not even the staff member who was still there had any idea who it could have been, which made things difficult. And the target of the attack, it had to be the Sekimeiya. There was no way it wasn't related. The very first showing of a newly discovered gemstone being interrupted meant only one thing. We hadn't checked whether the Sekimeiya was still in the room, but it was confirmed that it was still in the building with us, even if it had been taken out of its cabinet. The attack had been deliberate. That was the most important point. Whoever was responsible, I wanted to find them out and expose them. It was deeply personal. Really? Really? We glanced at Isla's pained face. After the second cough, she proceeded to slightly open her eyes. Isla, finally, are you okay? How do you feel? Arina's sudden outburst seemed to confuse her daughter. She raised her head and blinked blearily at all of us. Looking at her mother, she coughed weakly again and spoke. Where are we doing here? Her disorientation definitely wasn't helped by the fact that all the walls were stained black. Shiraya seemed like she wanted to say something, but she held back and let Arina speak. We're still inside a sheer tower. Do you remember all that smoke? It knocked us out, and you're the last one to wake up. Arina stroked Isla's hair gently, which seemed to soothe her. You're going to see the Sekimeiya? I'm trying to remember what happened after that, but I can't. Did we ever do that? No, sweetie. We were waiting for that in this very hallway, and the smoke came out. Do you not remember? Oh, smoke. I'm not sure. Is this that hallway? Why is everything black? That's also the smoke's doing. It stained everything it touched. Shiraya finally spoke up. Isla seemed to realise that everyone else had faint black stains on their clothes, so she looked down at her own, only to find them almost completely clean. At her height, her head had been primarily affected, but Arina had evidently wiped off the remains already. Do you feel okay? You've been out for a long time. I was really worried. Sorry, I think I feel okay, but my head hurts. But why are we here? Why is there no light, and why are we alone? Yeah, I guess if the big guy was expected less, and the 19-year-olds, then the kid was really clonked. We looked at each other, and for a few seconds, nobody knew how to answer. Kate quickly decided it was his job to do so. We're not aware of what caused the smoke, but it must have triggered a special alarm that shut down all entrances and exit methods. This means that we'll have to stay here for the next 12 hours, and it's possible there's only 8 of us who didn't evacuate in time. We all slightly lowered our heads, unsure whether his abrupt explanation had been a good idea to direct at a kid who'd just woken up. I had to process that information in silence for a minute. I didn't expect she'd take it well, but against my own prediction, she passively tossed out some words in response. Oh, I see. So we're going to be here for 12 hours. What will we do until then? Kids are resilient. If you give them the information, then they can, surprise you. I was relieved to see that she hadn't reacted badly. Telling a kid to stay put somewhere for many hours was something that could have gotten much worse. I mean, I'm assuming there's bathrooms and possibly some food somewhere. And it's not like they're trapped in a tiny room. She can run around. I'm guessing everyone's going to want a bathroom so they can wash their faces. I certainly wouldn't want black sticky stuff on my skin. I'd feel like I was suffocating. Mind you, I see smoke coming into a room. You're supposed to drop because smoke rises. Heat rises. So, getting close to the floor is sensible. You do that, and it wouldn't necessarily have inhaled as much. Which is what he thought Akara had done. What about being covered in leeches? What about being covered in leeches? Where did that come from? Are we suddenly in the Middle Ages and doing some bloodletting? Are your humours out of balance? Or are you trying to make a joke from something I said that I now can't remember what I said? Sadly, there's not much to do here. This first floor is filled with exhibition rooms, and it's officially called the Crystal Floor, in reference to all the gems. The upper floors are nothing but offices, and I'm afraid they're as uninteresting as they sound. They're offices? Does that mean we could use them to communicate with the outside? Is that what you meant earlier when you said it could be possible? Oh, no, usually that would be the case, but all the local internet connection is also something the alarm shuts down, precisely to block all communication methods. Internet connection will cut. Will it come back when the exit opens? Yes, we can't access it until then. There's no phone either, and I don't have mine here. What did you mean then? How do we have any way to speak to anyone outside? The room where I work, the security room, has a function that lets us enable communication with the outside. That one should not be out of commission. It was slightly relieving. If we could talk with people and understand the situation better, that would make the wait more bearable. However, it seemed strange to me that a communication method wouldn't be disabled. Entirely blocking off the exit and shutting down the internet connection had seemed to indicate the goal was to fully isolate the interior. Ignoring one method sounded a bit strange, which would have meant it wasn't one anyone would know how to access. Isla stood up, brushed herself off. She seemed ready to say something else, but a nearby sound startled us. We turned to face it and we met with the door opening. It was the one that led to the lobby. Someone else got trapped? I thought that until I saw a sign next to the door, and I realised he hadn't said anything since he told us his name. His left hand was gripping the knob. Where are you going? It looked like we were all a little confused that he'd been about to leave without warning. I'm going to check the lobby. I'm not doubting what Cat Eye has said, but I haven't personally seen the exit closed, so I'm curious if it could be forced open, for example. I've decided he's Scottish because otherwise everyone in this thing's going to sound the same. Nobody said anything. Instead, everyone but Shroya, who was still sitting down, began to slowly walk to the door. I took the opportunity to pull her aside and check on her. I mean, should we not check for Naomi? This was a deliberate attack, and I want to find out who did it if I can. Are you okay with that? Why are you asking me that? If you want to just hole up in a room for 12 hours, I'll respect it, but I don't want the person or people responsible getting away, and I think you feel the same way. Yeah, I'm fine. I just don't want you to get caught up in something dangerous, Satsuki. It's not like I'm some detective, I know that, but if you notice someone lying or find out something I don't, I want to know. I just figured if we're really trapped here, we should keep track of what happens. The culprit must have gotten trapped, so we can't trust anyone here. I know, usually the police would handle this, but if the cameras are all covered, there might be no records. And if they got away, they got away. I know perfectly well what she meant without finishing the sentence. I don't know! I'm hoping that whoever did it was stupid enough to get caught on camera before that happened, but we'll see. I know you're right, we're not the police. I just don't know who we can trust. Sorry, I'm just trying to process everything. I didn't mean to be so quiet until now. I feel the same way you do. Maybe I feel worse, actually. I hate this. I want this to be over. Yeah, me too. Let's get going. I helped Shiro to her feet and we headed to where everyone else had gone. As if we'd stepped into another world, the lobby looked almost as it had when we'd last been there. The lights weren't blackened, but some had been turned off, most likely automatically. Only the bit of the smoke had sneaked through the gaps of the doors, forming a dark outline around them. That would have been all if it wasn't for the metal shutter blocking the door we'd entered through. Aside from the reception desk, the only thing of note in the room was the couch and cleaning bucket. Everyone else seemed to have lapsed into silence except for Katai, who simply appeared as if he didn't know what to tell us. Ooh, I guess there's no way we're opening that. Isn't it a bit too much? Why would they trap us in like this? I agree this looks over the top, but I'm afraid the same has occurred with every window of the tower. All the blockades are designed not to let sound pass. We won't be leaving earlier than intended. I apologise that this has happened. Can't you at least tell us why? Why is there a metal shutter here? This doesn't look normal at all. My apologies, but as I said earlier, I'm not allowed to supply that information. Don't misinterpret me. Even though I could give you some details, I'm mostly kept in the dark when it comes to knowing the reasons. I'm only charged with making sure that the system is functional, so I wouldn't be able to tell you much about what you want to know. What are the details you know then? Look at it from our perspective. We can't stay in the dark forever. I understand, I promise, however I can't say anything. We all felt the need to sigh. Knowing information was being kept from us wasn't a pleasant thought, and it dumped any cooperation we might have wished for. However, it would have been unreasonable to press the issue further. 12 hours it is then. After saying that, he walked up to the shutter and tried to move it aside to confirm it was as sturdy as it looked. Of course it didn't budge at all. Shrugging a little, I turned back. Bus door wasn't closed, by the way, it was slightly open. Yeah, I saw that. And look, very little smoke passed through it, so it was opened after the smoke was released. Yeah, it was closed when we were knocked out. I was the one that opened it. I see. That's how he came through. I looked at the other door. Although it was closed, it appeared that more smoke had gone through it. There was something else piquing my curiosity. Katai, you said all methods of escape were sealed. What are those? Or rather, how many of them are on this floor? On this floor, only one. It doesn't have windows, so this is all that's locked. The other floors do have windows though, and they were fully sealed too as soon as the alarm went off. See. I had assumed the smoke's goal was to isolate the event room to have an easy path to it, obtain the gem, then leave with it, but that's strange. Strange? I think that's the most likely scenario too. I say that because the lobby has been left alone. If the goal was to bring the Sekimeiya outside, why wouldn't they also release the smoke here? After all, 2 full hallways were attacked, so why not the lobby too? Yeah, if the goal was to bring the Sekimeiya out during all the confusion, that doesn't make sense that they didn't do it here. I don't know what released the smoke. I didn't see anything in the hallways, but this is a much bigger room. It could be that whatever method they used simply wouldn't have worked here. Or they didn't want to trap, like, hundreds of people in. They wanted to get everyone out, and the smoke was twofold. Maybe, if you wanted to block off the security cameras only to be spotted in this hall, your plan obviously wasn't well thought out. Could it be that leaving with the Sekimeiya wasn't the goal of the plan, or maybe that they intended to do it later? Is it realistic to think that anyone could alert everyone with a smoke, leave with this incredibly rare item and not be caught immediately? Even if the cameras were blocked, once outside, you're still one of the last people to exit and wouldn't be allowed to leave freely and unexamined. There is something that comes to mind, and it's why I only asked about this floor's escape routes. The lobby was never used to escape. Now, Katai says the windows on the upper floor are sealed, meaning that if they're not, they provide a feasible way out. Keeping in mind the alarm came late and we never actually saw the Sekimeiya, could it be by the time we stepped into the room it already wasn't there? The culprit could have gone up a floor to escape through the windows. Katai hasn't spoken about the footage of this time frame, so he might not have been looking at the cameras. Then again, even if the cameras spotted the culprit, they'd be able to leave through a prepared window route and flee immediately once outside. Then use an automated mechanism to create the smoke and lock the tower right before the Sekimeiya is ever shown to the public. For the people outside, it would make it look as if it's still in the building and entirely obscure the time in which it was stolen. We started our session a bit later than expected because Shiro and I were slightly delayed, but even if we'd gone faster and seen the missing Sekimeiya, it wouldn't have meant anything to the person who successfully stolen it since we'd soon be locked inside. So, if I assume some cameras recorded the culprit leaving through the window, it doesn't make sense that the smoke would then be deployed. However, if they'd also had a way around those cameras using another method, it would give off the illusion that someone who got trapped must have been the one to steal the Sekimeiya. And only after the smoke showed up. After all, the lobby was left untouched and no one would have left through after the smoke appeared. Since the alarm came later, whatever the culprit did one floor above must have triggered it. Maybe the culprit triggered it purposefully, which is why it didn't match the smoke's timing. That would be a great plan that ended in success. I'd be deluding myself a bit much, but I'm also assuming they were able to get the Sekimeiya out of the cabinet without being noticed, which is probably too hard to believe. Not to mention Naomi unlocked the cabinet with her key, meaning it was locked by that time. So why would the culprit lock it after getting the Sekimeiya out, let alone have a way to do it? I believe it's far simpler than that, Sai. Katai took away a while to answer, while I'd been thinking he also had. After all, the lobby doesn't have security cameras. What? I realised immediately I'd already gone too far and got slightly embarrassed. Making up complicated theories was a habit of mine. Making a leap without even considering the facts was the last kind of mistake I need to be making, given the circumstances. Regardless, that seemed pretty ridiculous. It was a big lobby, so even though I couldn't spot any cameras, I had to figure they were well hidden. All of us frowned, doubting that decision. I know it might sound strange. Next to the main door are guards who inspected everyone who enters, making sure they don't possess any kind of suspicious item. For this very reason, the fact that a big quantity of smoke was somehow released from the inside is already very strange. There's nothing of value in this lobby. The only way to access any valuable item is by entering the actual exhibition centre through one of the two hallways. There's no other way to reach the gemstones aside from these two doors. I mean, then why not have security cameras on the doors? On the entrance, just in case. Since there are cameras in the hallway, the entrance to the valuables is monitored. Having them here is simply not necessary. What the hell? You guys are not very good at the security thing, are you? We have our reasons, but nobody could steal anything and leave without being recorded. But it meant with the smoked hallways, it was actually possible someone could have stolen something and left without being seen by the cameras, although it was incredibly hard to believe that once outside they could have managed to leave with a stolen object, even more so after seeing how harsh the security measures were. Without a doubt, everyone who'd been evacuated must have been searched to make sure they hadn't been in possession of anything suspicious. You said there's no way to make it to the actual rooms containing the gemstones, then what about that door? She was pointing at the smaller door situated behind the reception desk. Oh. Oops, okay. Oh, that leads to a room right under us. Past the door, staircase goes to the room that stores the main boiler for the building, the electricity meter, the circuit breakers, and some pieces of furniture that we don't use anymore. Naturally, there are no cameras there either. It's right under us? Yes, the staircase is a semicircle, so that room, which we call the mechanical room, is below the lobby. And what about computer? Can we use it for anything? No, as I said earlier, the internet connection's been cut. That's not all, though. The alarm also disabled this computer so that the people trapped inside couldn't look through its files. Is the door locked? No, it's not. Since it's right behind the reception corner, visitors can't enter it. I doubt the room could have been used for anything regarding this incident. Even if someone managed to make it inside, they would have needed a key to access the breakers, but it's not like the lights went out. Would Naomi have had that key? Naomi? No, that's not part of her job. I do have it, but I don't think I've ever used it. As a thought, could we power off the system in charge of the alarm to open up the exit? No, of course not. It'd be a big oversight if a thief could go in there, force open the lid, and then break free. Not every circuit can be handled from that room, only the basic ones that power the lights and such. Essential operations like the security system and maintenance functions can't be turned off. I see. With another escape method eliminated, our spirits sank. Meanwhile, Isla seemed captivated by our talk and stared at us intensely. What's that? She seemed to be looking at Shiroya's neck. This? It's a pendant. I believe it's tanzanite, right? Yeah. Oh, it's really pretty. I want one like it. You said it's tanzanite? I really doubt that. This seems to be an imitation. They're very common. Is that so? I don't know. Shiroya gave him a terse reply, obviously displeased. If it's not, then that gem must be worth an immense sum. It doesn't matter though, I really like it. Isla, you wanted to say something else before, right? What was it? Yeah, we came here for the Sekimeiya, right? I just wanted to go see it. She glanced down, expecting to get scolded, but no one reacted that way. There's no weird still there, right? What even was there? Sai began looking at me and ending in sentences as Akaro. We hadn't mentioned that we hadn't yet seen the Sekimeiya, so since I'd freely spoken about having been stolen, it was only natural he'd assumed we'd seen it missing. Actually, we don't know. We never saw it. We were going to check it when we woke up, but Irina's shout interrupted us. Are you serious? Shiroya and Akara nodded as well, and everyone else had the same look as Sai. It seemed they'd all assumed the Sekimeiya had been stolen. Once again, without warning, Sai made his way out the lobby. Isla was the first to follow him. No one objected, as we were all curious about what the Sekimeiya actually was, and whether it would even be there. Oh, it'd be funny if it's there. Did the lights just go out? Nope, we just transitioned. Shiroya and I made our way back to the room where we'd fallen unconscious. Once Katai entered, our 7 pairs of eyes focused on the dark-coloured curtain that blocked the view to the cabinet's interior. So you're seeing that none of you saw behind this curtain before or after the smoke, right? Yes, Naomi was about to raise it, but then the smoke appeared. People went quiet at the mention of Naomi. Given the alarm had played when she'd been there, her disappearance was very strange. Let's see then, what do you guys think, as it's still here? It's very hard to think that it would be, and going off the expressions, everyone else agreed with me. I see it as. That would make things more interesting, wouldn't it? And I'm curious about how it looks. After these questionable words, Sai proceeded to slowly raise the curtain, exaggerating its own action. As the curtain was being raised, the dust that had gotten stuck on it shook loose and formed a little pile on the carpet. The major part of what the curtain was covering was clean wood that contrasted the stained room. Finally, a transparent pane of glass sheltering a cushion came into view. The curtain had been fully raised. Because of the darkness in the room, it took us a bit to see what was behind that glass. Let me see. Is it there? Sai, being next to the cabinet, was staring inside. We all got closer as well. Inside was a red cushion, a colour that would definitely have looked beautiful if not for the lack of proper illumination. And on that cushion, occupying a small space of it, was a white-coloured sphere. Looking closer, it wasn't actually a sphere, but an egg-shaped stone. It shined very faintly. It was big, and could easily have been mistaken for an actual egg. However, we all knew it wasn't. Naomi had told us it was an incredibly rare gem, and putting aside how simple it was, it looked very pretty and elegant. It's this, right? It wasn't taken? Are you seeing this was a sheer's big find? How can we be sure it's a real thing? It is. I have seen it before. I happened to spend hours in front of the security cameras. Isla looked dumbfounded and couldn't help but stare. How disappointing. I guess it'd still please all those other people, but I came here purely out of curiosity, and despite not having any kind of expectations, I'm embarrassed to admit I'm a bit let down. This can be as rare as you want to call it, but it's still just an egg. An incredibly valuable one, apparently. And it's still here. What was all the smoke for, then? I know I said I'd hope for this to be the keys, but I'm not too sure. That probably means the culprit's plan wasn't really all that elaborate. They might just plan to spend 12 hours with us and then it's time to leave, have an easy way out with this thing. And how exactly will they pull that off? I don't know, but it's practically impossible. What's happening here doesn't have to do with us, right? The end goal must be to steal it, so this just means that the plan isn't over yet. I'm not so sure. Hey, Katai, do you know if Naomi was aware of the existence of that alarm? Naomi? She should not have been. I couldn't tell you for sure why. Imagine this for a second. Naomi's job is perfectly positioned for this. She acted confused when the attack happened, but was prepared for the smoke. However, the alarm that locked her inside didn't factor into her plan because she wasn't aware of it. Atsuki, you said you heard the alarm a few seconds after the smoke was released. Do you know how many approximately? 20 maybe? So 20 seconds later, pretty much everyone is unconscious and Naomi hears this alarm. By this point, she doesn't know it's trapping her in the tower. If she had, she wouldn't have pretended to be unconscious, and if she had, she would have pretended to be unconscious until we all woke up. But she didn't. Instead, she obtained the Sekimeiya thanks to her key and left with it to proceed with her plan. I'm not sure how it continues now or how she intended to escape, but she realised that the exit had been blocked off. Katai said this was a very specific alarm that hadn't gone off before, so it makes sense she didn't recognise its sound. Well, as she finished searching for an exit or a way to continue with her plan, she thought her only choice was to come back, play the confused card. But as she was coming back, she probably heard me open this door and backed out. It's clear she's the most suspicious person in the building. It's possible she was listening to us and heard that we didn't look behind the curtain. By leaving before doing so, we gave her a chance to look innocent. When we were in the hallway, she simply entered the room again and placed the Sekimeiya back in the cabinet. Now, it's possible we'll find her playing dumb or pretending to be knocked out somewhere, claiming she was disoriented, trying to assess the situation. It's impossible she's not trapped in here with us. Okay, so I actually have a problem with that. Dust. Oops, this is hard to type with. Came off. I meant to type more. Came off. Curtain. When raised. So, I'm just going to call it a stone for now. Oh, let's call it an egg. So, egg. Not. Replaced. So, that's my note. Because he just said she must have come back. Oh no, did I just undo something? Oh. Yeah, I like it when you can leave custom notes. I don't tend to do it very often because, you know. Okay, so dust came off when the curtain raised. Right, that's my note. Because they're saying that she must have slipped in here. But how can... Oh, it's not saving. Okay. Apparently you can add a note, but I'm just going to leave it at dust came off. But that's really annoying because... Yeah. Well, it's on my video anyway, I suppose. Don't make a mistake in the note the first time. So, yeah. But it can't have been because it said dust came off the curtain and had an amount. Hang on, can we do search? Dust. Yeah, there we go. As a dust that was stuck on it shook loose and formed a little pile on the floor. Oops. Hang on. Right. Try again. Yeah, so this scenario couldn't have happened because the dust came off. I see. That will make sense. It could very well be that this top secret alarm only played whenever someone tried to get the Sekimeiya out of here, and that she hadn't been informed of it. Sai shot Katai a glance, clearly displeased that he had to make the assumption based on limited information. Come on, we haven't found her yet, so shouldn't you be waiting to draw conclusions until we do? For all we know, she's looking for a way to help us. Way out to help us. You're right, we can't assume that Naomi's responsible, and we need to establish something that clears her name a little bit. Even though you guys tried to explain things with the delayed alarm, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Because we saw Naomi on the floor when the alarm went off. So yeah. Okay, so at the moment, we've got 7 of the 8 people. Naomi's job was to explain everything about the Sekimeiya and make sure the exhibition happened smoothly. An alarm that's triggered when the Sekimeiya is removed is something she would know about, so thinking she was unaware of it is pretty ridiculous. And while her position is convenient to orchestrate this, it also makes her a very strong suspect from the get-go. I can't be sure of it, but by the time I heard the alarm, I did hear the sound of a body falling, and given all 3 of us were down the floor, it must have been Naomi's. On top of that, the glass hadn't been opened, so if she opened it while I was on the floor and triggered the alarm, I think I would have heard it. To mention how risky this is, surely she would have waited until Oars was definitely unconscious to get the Sekimeiya out. This also implies the alarm was unstable. Even if she triggered it by opening cabinet, she previously unlocked it. The alarm would have gone off when someone forced it open, not when someone had opened it after unlocking it. Also, they said we could touch it! However, there's one thing that's totally impossible, and that is that the Sekimeiya was first stolen and then brought back. Karo seemed too intrigued to know why his idea was incorrect. It's gonna be the dust! Remember the curtain back then? Oh, I think I see what you mean. The black substance had already dried on the curtain. Just now, as I raised it, a bunch of these particles fell on the floor, and almost none of them stayed on the curtain. So, it didn't move after you left, and it's not possible to touch the glass without moving the curtain. Sekimeiya must have also been here when we woke up. It could be that Naomi brought the Sekimeiya when we were still sleeping. That won't contradict anything, since the substance might not have fully dried on the curtain by that point. That doesn't make sense either, though. She would have only done that if she hadn't accounted for the alarm, so if she gave up on her plan and placed the Sekimeiya back before we woke up, she would have also closed her eyes and laid on the floor as if nothing had happened. Regardless of what the exact events had been, the Sekimeiya was inside its cabinet. What had the point of the smoke been? What had triggered the alarm, and what would happen next? It still felt surreal, everything that suddenly happened. Can I touch it? What? No, don't. Isla had been staring at the Sekimeiya with an astonished face. Maybe because it seemed to be the core of everything, touching him must have sounded dangerous. Why not? Naomi was going to let us do it. Is this even open? It looks like that glass is shut. It shouldn't be. According to what Naomi had said earlier, the key she had must have unlocked it. If it's open, you should be able to move the glass. Can you see? It's open. Yeah, I can scroll the glass down. The glass had a little opening to put your fingers in and push it down. If the lock was open, we'd be able to move it. From the looks of it, it was not a very sturdy or wide piece of glass, so breaking it with force seemed possible too. Sai scrolled it all the way down, and we fixed our eyes on the Sekimeiya, no longer protected by any layer of security. Isla extended her arm slowly. No one except Irina looked concerned about her doing it, but I could tell that Shiroi was still agitated by the fact none of them wanted to drop everything and find the missing person. Before Isla got to touch the Sekimeiya, she spoke. It's cold. You're right, actually. The air inside the cabinet is cooled. Oh, right. I was told about this. Apparently the Sekimeiya must remain in a code place. This was a very basic thing everyone was told, and it sounded very important. Why would that be needed? I'm afraid I'm clueless. This is why the temperature inside the cabinet is very low, though. That sounded interesting. For whatever reason, Sekimeiya had to always stay in a cold place, or at least that was what the Ashir family had instructed. Maybe that was the reason why it had been left in the cabinet even after the attack. Do we check what happens if we get it out? Of course not. Oh, do I check what happens if we get it out? Of course not. The Sekimeiya must remain inside this cabinet. We were very specifically told not to remove it or subject it to any kind of heat. It's totally a freaking egg. Yeah, it's actually an actual egg. That's why they're keeping it cold. They don't want to incubate it. It's probably a dragon egg. Why not? A very small dragon egg. I suppose it's still Katai's duty to act according to the rules. If something happened to the Sekimeiya, then there probably would not be a positive outcome for him, given he was basically supervising us. Assuming the blame didn't get shifted to Naomi for some reason at least. If the Sekimeiya was actually left here due to the cold temperature, it follows whoever put the attack together must have somehow learned of that requirement. Ayla, who'd paused her movement due to Katai's serious voice, continued moving her arm towards the Sekimeiya. In just a second she was in reach, and her small hand was placed on top of it. Silently she felt it for a few moments before letting out an amazed gasp. Oh, it's very smooth. I love it. She started feeling it conspicuously with a smile on her face. It is? Naomi did say that touching it was part of the experience. Shiraya joined her, evidently trying to make Ayla feel better. You're right, this feels very pleasant to the touch and also really cold. Worth all the advertisements and expectations? Yes. No, not really, but touching it is pretty relaxing. It feels almost silky. It's a giant spider egg. Oh. Given our situation and the fact that Naomi is missing, we should let this be. I know we'll most likely be here for 12 hours, but this place is very important and we should not be careless. Sai and I were being the next ones to touch it, but we had to respect that. Without responding verbally, Ayla and Shiraya moved their hands from the cabinet. Katai's request was a reasonable one, and we still had more important things to think about. Even though 6 of us had come to see the Sekimeiya, only Ayla seemed to have a legitimately strong interest in it. I looked at the left side of the cabinet, expecting to find something. There was the keyhole Naomi had used to unlock the glass. It says here unlocked. That's how Naomi unlocked the cabinet. Katai, do you know how many keys can open it? I don't know for sure, but certainly not many. I'm only aware of the one Naomi had. So the only person who can open this is Naomi, who just had to disappear and might be hiding somewhere. Stop assuming her intentions are bad just because we haven't seen her yet. We have to find her as soon as we can. Yes, but before that, we have to contact the outside from the security room. I would like to know what our situation actually looks like. And if Naomi went upstairs all by herself and chose to leave us unconscious, I won't be prioritizing her now. I guess so. Splitting up is probably a bad idea, but if she didn't back when we finished, we really need to go looking. There wasn't any other opposition. If Naomi intended to show herself to us, she would come back eventually. We worked under the assumption that still had the cabinet key. However, if she'd ever fallen unconscious, someone could have easily grabbed it, maybe failing to recognise that the cabinet was already unlocked. If you'd woken up as that happened, the culprit might have panicked and be responsible for her disappearance. But this was a worst-case scenario and not something we could easily jump to. It was true that contacting the outside world was much more important. Let's go to the security room. That's where I work. We're very close to it, actually. It is beneficial to have it on the lowest floor next to the entrance. Katai closed the glass and gave us a look that once again indicated how precious of an item that the Sekimeiya was. Subsequently, he opened the opposite door of the room. Past it was a very similar hallway. Like in the other one, the ceiling and walls were stained by an ugly dark colour. It had been a while since the smoke was released, so the substance had dried up. Fully, letting more light pass through. Once everyone was with us, I peeked into one of the rooms in front of us. As Akara had said, it looked clean, creating the same contrast as the lobby. The light worked perfectly, and there was almost no trace of the smoke aside from a small amount that had passed through the gaps of the door. It seemed the function of the room was only to showcase different types of gemstones placed inside cabinets. I couldn't be sure, though, as all of them were covered by curtains. It's that door. Without moving, Katai said these words, indicating the single door that stood out. While all the others were normal wooden doors, this one was grey and looked much more sturdy. Once Katai approached it, we walked behind. On it was a nameplate with the words, Security Room. Katai grabbed the doorknob and upon turning it, he tried to push the door forward, however it didn't budge. Oh, right, I locked it earlier, let me see. You locked it? Yes, I have the key right here. Taking a couple of keys out of his pocket, Katai inserted one of them into the keyhole. This is an important room. When I left, I wasn't exactly aware of the situation, given I couldn't see through some of the cameras. I found it appropriate to lock the only room that allows communication with the outside until I knew more about what had happened. That was probably a good idea. With a simple turn, the door was audibly unlocked. Before entering, I inquired about something I found next to it. Oh, is this a map? I almost didn't notice it since the entire wall looked the same. Yes, it's a map of this first floor. The rooms labelled with a letter and a number are what we call the crystal rooms. They're the exhibition rooms where all the gemstones are displayed. I brushed off the dry dust and looked at it. Oh, hello. As Katai said, the map... Oh, there's a zoom in of the map behind me, and there's a dot here. This is us outside the security room. Why it has to be where I am, I don't know, but it is. As Katai had said, the map only showed the first floor's contents, and it seemed stairs and an elevator would lead us to the others. It was the only floor that was usually open to the public, so there were a large number of rooms to visit, and also bathrooms. And a cleaning room and staff room, which may include food. So, event room was the only one that had exits onto A and B. So, we went in on this far side, of the B side of the lobby, and walked up the B corridor. So, the 3 were waiting outside, say, A1, though A1 isn't open from that side. That was where we found them. We were in the event room. The door to A was slightly open. Security room was where Katai was, and I think he must have come in through the lobby to go round. Or maybe he went round C. Because he didn't see us in the event room. We didn't see him in the event room. So he either went A to C to B, or he went through the lobby and found the other people collapsed by the door, where they were waiting. And Naomi possibly went out of thing onto A and then headed for the elevator or the stairs, or possibly a storeroom. I don't know. Oops. Yeah, so these are the things that have happened so far, which is pretty cool that we get that. Now we have a thingy room. Ah, it shows us where we are. There are 10 pages. We're going to make a few save files just because. We found ourselves in hallway next to the security room and had much left of the whole floor to look through. As a notable point, the event room was the only room that connected both hallways, literally what I just said. Apart from the lobby and the perpendicular hallway C, as expected there were bathrooms too, so we wouldn't have to worry on that front. As light coming from the end of the hallways, that means the horizontal one wasn't hit by the smoke, right? Yes, only these sections were. Katai, who'd claimed to have slightly inspected the floor, showed us exactly where the smoke had been released. Interesting that it just sort of stopped. That's weird. So if one of the goals with the smoke was to disable the security cameras, they didn't use hallway C for anything. Yes, I looked at the live footage of it when I was in this room and no one showed up. They still would have had 2 available ways to cross the hallways though. Everyone looked pensive, including Isla, but they voiced some of their thoughts. The layout was pretty simple, remembering it wouldn't be a problem, but we could always look at the map again. Katai waited until everyone was done examining it to open the door. Like the lobby and the room I just looked into, the place was completely clean and no traces of smoke could be found, not even any that had slipped through the door. However, the contrast wasn't as noticeable given the room's darker colours and faint light. Paying no mind to everyone's silence, Katai made his way to his chair and sat down. When he moved the mouse, the computer exited its suspended state and reactivated the 3 monitors above it, showing us what the last person to use it had been doing. Above those 3 scenes were many more monitors that displayed the real-time footage of the cameras. While there was no way every room of the floor was shown there, at first glance there was no trace of Naomi or any other person. All those security cameras, does that mean we'll be able to look at the recorded footage? We should be able to. I don't believe you'd be authorised to, but given the situation, we might be able to look at it after we talk with the outside. It was an interesting proposition. Looking at the recorded footage might have revealed the source of the smoke, if someone hadn't been able to evacuate, and information on Naomi's whereabouts. We all got closer to Cat Eye and looked at the screens. It seems the computer was using a standard operating system. Is this the current time? Oh, yes, this means it's now 9:41 a.m. Okay, so this has happened in like 40 minutes. Which is, obviously, on stream it's taken us an hour and 40. But that's because I've been reading and chatting with chat. As Cat Eye said, next to the numbers that displayed the date, the current time showed 9:41 a.m. That meant that the exit would unlock at approximately 9:05 p.m. in 11 hours and 20 minutes. That seems about right. We started a bit late, so I think the smoke appeared 5 minutes after we left the lobby. I'd say we've been awake for more than 20 minutes already, so this will mean we were unconscious for about 15 minutes. Yes, this matches with the amount of time I stayed in here after I saw the smoke. Shortly after that, the alarm went off, so I knew I was already trapped. During that time until I exited, I stayed looking at the cameras. I also tried to use the computer to look up information about what had happened. The alarm even shut down my internet connection. Wait, what? Why would it do that? You said you still have a Wi-Fi to communicate with the outside. Why didn't you use it? Oh, I did not find it appropriate. My top priority was to find out what was happening here, so I focused on looking at all the cameras that remained functional. Don't you think a very good way to find out what was happening would have been to ask the outside? Might be right, that could have been the smarter choice, but I did not think it through well enough. So even though the internet connection is cut off, you have a communication method? Yes, this computer is connected to all the computers on the upper floors. Even though there's no connection, a way exists to connect with the Ashia family, and only the security staff know about it. It does not use the normal internet connection. It was designed in case of emergencies. Hey, what? So if you weren't here, we would have to spend 12 hours locked up not knowing what's actually happening, and without a way to communicate with the outside world. Yes, it sounds rough, but this alarm doesn't get triggered lightly. We should just be content with the fact that I stayed inside. I wouldn't have been doing my job if I'd evacuated. I forgot to have lunch. No, I had lunch. No, I did have lunch. I was like, I forgot to have lunch. No, I did have lunch. I thought I'd forgotten to have lunch. Ugh, my brain sometimes is annoying. I did have lunch, because otherwise I'd be hungry right now. Anyway, let's continue. I want to find out some more information. Sorry, not the game, just me. Nobody had anything else to add, so Cat Eye proceeded. Deep within many folders, he started up a program that contained a very simple interface. After inputting a username and an encrypted password we couldn't read, he pressed the enter key. A small window shifted into a much larger and emptier one. The first thing we noticed was that a loud, unintelligible audio feed was being played. Seconds later, a video appeared in the centre of the window. Is this a car? Yes, it looks like a car seat. Everyone looked at Cat Eye, but he shrugged and kept watching. The video was probably live, and the echo was obnoxiously loud. We could hear many people talking in the background, but it was impossible to make out any words. We continued staring at the screen, unsure what we're actually looking at. Is anything going to change? Nobody answered a question they couldn't answer. After more than 15 seconds, nothing had changed, and the audio continued playing. This is for communication, right? Can they hear us right now? They actually should be able to. Hello, can anyone hear us? Hello, can anyone hear me? Amidst the messy noise, we noticed one of the voices was strengthening. I'm from Ashia, talking from inside the tower. Is anyone there? Oh, yeah, it's coming from inside. There's finally an incoming connection. My apologies. Hello, is this working? Do you see me? The camera was manually moved by the person who sat in front of it. Still inside a car, a police officer was uncertainly fixing his eye on the lens. Yes, by the looks of it, you're aware of the situation. Cat Eye said that because the Shire Tower could be seen through the car's windows. Oh, said that because the sheer tower could be seen through the car's windows. A great deal of police officers were in front of it, and I could see the metal shutter looks just as ridiculous from the other side. It was a bizarre thought knowing we were inside. We definitely hadn't been on a streak of good luck, but getting trapped inside a building the first time we'd stepped into it let us know that life wouldn't feel like redeeming itself anytime soon. I've been trying to act composed and stave off all my negative thoughts, but the prospect of having to spend another 11 hours trapped in a building was daunting, and Shiroya surely felt similar. We know what occurred, yes. The Ashir family was in contact with us, and we were informed of this communication method. Since a member of security staff was assumed to be in the tower, we kept this device with us, expecting it to be activated at any moment. I'm a police officer. My name is Suripo. So can you see us? No. I can only receive audio feed. The man sounded a bit thrown off after hearing the voice of a little girl. It was only natural given the vast majority of people who form the line have been adults. What happened in there? How many of you inside? There should be 8 of us, even though there are only 7 at present. However, we can't be certain someone else didn't get trapped either. We have not inspected the entire building yet. You're in the security room, right? If there were more people, couldn't you see them through the security cameras? Let me see. We just got here, so we haven't looked extensively. Some cameras have been disabled by the smoke, and some places are without cameras, but I can try looking through the ones that remain functional. Since the number of monitors wasn't enough to display all the live feeds at once, Kato started to move through them with a program that seemed to manage the entire system. Presumably only the first floor was being monitored continuously, being the one with unfettered public access. He was able to change all the cameras being displayed at once, making the process simple and brief. As he'd said, the only thing to be seen through a handful of them was a black screen created by the smoke. Even after the substance had solidified, there was no chance we could see well through it. Strangely enough, the last cameras that Kate displayed showcased a much different environment. The first floor had contained all the exhibition rooms, and from there there had only been dull offices. But some of the cameras were displaying a bedroom. This must look odd to you all, correct? Do you know the story behind this place? This was the Ashir's family residence until a decade ago. Then its purpose changed and work floors began to be added. This is why it's called a tower. The townspeople saw that floors kept being constructed, and they started to call it a tower sarcastically, as if it would never stop increasing in height. I don't know if Ashir liked the name of it or if they officialized it to counter its negative connotations. You might have also heard it called the Ashir skyscraper. What you're seeing is the very top floor. When the structure was expanded, for a while the living area was kept as the highest floor, and now it's referred to as the Ashir floor, the attic. It's not possible to enter it without a very special key, one I most certainly don't possess. In fact, I've never set foot inside it, despite monitoring these cameras daily. Of course, the cameras were installed after the place stopped being their residence, and they were only placed in some of the rooms before continuing was deemed unnecessary. The initial reason was to make sure it was preserved well, and given that it was of great importance to the Ashir family. They were installed with the thought of someone breaking in and expecting to find unguarded hidden information. However, the installation process was never completed. While I don't know many of the details, I can say that not one time have I seen anything of importance happening inside. That sounded interesting, but it didn't mean much to us. The camera still showed an entirely desolate space. Every room with a camera is empty at the moment. It doesn't account for places like bathrooms, areas where the cameras are blocked by smoke, the lobby and other staff-only rooms, and the section of the attic that's not monitored. I'm just curious, but this room doesn't have a camera either, does it? I didn't see it on the monitors. No, it doesn't. For now, the number of us in the building is no lower than 8. We haven't been able to find the 8th person yet, but she must be here. I'm talking about Naomi Kapka, another staff member. I understand. Give me the name of everyone present. I will add Miss Kapka to the list. I am... wrong button. Katya Kuji. I'm the main person in charge of the tower security system. Everyone else I have here with me is a visitor. Understood. What are your names? I'm Irina Majutsu. My daughter, Aida Majutsu, is who we spoke earlier. I'm noting it down. Akaro Asata. Atsuki Hakutoki. Shiroya Mirana. Sai what? Sai Nyamiya. Alright, thank you. So adding in Ms. Kapka, these are the 8 people we know for sure are currently inside. This will be helpful. Yes, right now she has to be in a place we can't see from here. The chances someone else is 2 are slim. So how's our situation looking? We'd also appreciate having information. We don't have much to work with. The testimony from people who were inside at the time. Given all the visitors were in the lobby, we don't have a comprehensive rundown to give you. Unidentified smoke appeared on the first floor, and shortly after an alarm went off. The effect of this alarm was to seal all the exit routes. We already know this. Why was the alarm triggered and how can we leave? There's only one thing that triggered the alarm. According to what we've been told, it's forcing open the Sekimeiya cabinet. What do you mean? We were just in there now and the cabinet looked fine. Not only that, but when the alarm went off, I was in the room with that very cabinet and I didn't hear anything happening to it. That sounds strange. This is reliable information that's been provided to us, so I don't know if it's possible something else triggered it. Maybe the system broke. What's for sure is we just observed the Sekimeiya. Everything there is intact. I'm sure the Ashi family will be glad to hear that. I'll tell them immediately. However, that is as expected, seeing as all that was stolen were a few gemstones of little value. Everyone had a hard time processing that last sentence. Meanwhile, Surupo looked to be sending a text message, most likely to Ashia, assuring the well-being of the Sekimeiya. What do you mean? What was stolen? Well, naturally, after the alarm went off, it took a while to confine everyone who had evacuated. A young individual carrying a back suitcase dashed off, so they were pulled aside. Inside it, we found various gemstones that belonged to Ashia. That individual has refused to say anything, however it's been assumed that some part of their actions triggered the alarm. If you say that the Sekimeiya cabinet hasn't been damaged though, that puts some doubt on that conclusion. As their plan triggered the alarm, how did they manage to avoid getting trapped? We don't know, but since nothing is wrong with the Sekimeiya, this seems to confirm the goal was to divert everyone's attention and steal a bunch of regular gems while everyone in charge thought they knew the next target. What do you mean the next target? And how long will we need to stay here as a result of this stunt? Both of your questions are related, actually. I assume this means you haven't heard of the past incidents. Past incidents? What does that mean? I read about it not too long ago. In Yushin News, about how Ashia Tower had suffered another robbery yet again by a group called Zin, I believe. Yushin News was a monthly newspaper that released a compilation of all the recent news. Given our town wasn't very big, it was a popular way to keep oneself updated, but it wasn't something I often looked at. Exactly. The Ashia family and Zin have a history together. Even though Ashia are perceived as the major force around, when they attracted people interested in their business, they inevitably drew in competition and enemies too. That part was majorly taken by Zin, a long-running group that specialises in robberies of valuable objects alongside similar criminal activities. When the Ashia family became established and wealthy entity, they also became a great target for Zin. The fact that they had developed in such a calm environment meant their security measures were far from prepared. It's rumoured that Zin is a small group of people who work together and put a great deal of effort into their plans. Not a single time have they been caught, which evidently gave them a very strong reputation that most people came to know. For Ishibana residents, the Ashia family may look like an almighty entity. In a slightly bigger picture, they're not one at all. This led to them focusing on expanding themselves before even foreseeing or trying to prevent these attacks, which have only been getting bolder. The first one happened 2 years ago. The security at the time was nothing special, so it looked like a small job, not anything of particular note. However, since then, the attacks have increased in both scale and frequency. I couldn't tell you how big this group calling itself Zen really is, but they haven't stopped tormenting Ashia. Stopping them has been pretty problematic, and now they're attacking in broad daylight with mass panic like this. At least we assume they're involved here. Had such a battle actually been happening in the town I'd always lived in? I purposely avoided that sound of it, but I hadn't heard of Zin even once. I could vaguely recall having heard that Ashia Tower had been robbed, but I'd never imagined the events were of such a large scale. No one I frequently talked to had an interest in the topic. I really wish they'd turn those monitors off. That glare is bothering me. I'd never imagined the events were so if it was common knowledge, I'd never been told. Ashia had always felt like a taboo, and I'd never personally researched them. I think the last time this happened wasn't too long ago, right? I was scared to bring Isla here, but she was really excited. Yes, on the 24th of November, 21 days ago, Zin last attacked. Ignoring the latest security upgrades, they made their way in during the night and stole a lot of valuable gems. It was one of the strongest attacks that she had suffered to date. Correct. Nothing actually indicates Zin were the ones involved, and in fact nothing ever does. However, the way everything goes smoothly and all of Ashia's efforts are proven futile screams Zin to everyone. So this time Ashia took it a step further, right? Perhaps we'd all been thinking of that, and it looked like we'd been simply caught in the middle of a rivalry, and Ashia's latest move had imprisoned us. Yes, it's possible that Zin aren't actually involved, given the stolen gems were found. Nonetheless, the way you were taken out is still unknown. They were in one of the deepest rooms of the floor you're on. What closed the exit was the alarm, which had never gone off in the past, while Ashia denying it, malfunctions are a possibility. The alarm was supposed to only go off when the Sekimeiya cabinet was forced open. If stealing the gems we found was what triggered it, it doesn't make sense that they were brought outside. And on top of that, you're saying the Sekimeiya and the cabinet are intact. It all sounded very strange, and I was admittedly intrigued. Hey, Lady Marguerite! I've been given authority to tell you about Shia's latest move against Zin, which led to this incident. I see. This is what I felt I said I couldn't say earlier. Keep in mind what I'm about to tell you is a confidential matter that you're only allowed to hear because of your circumstances. One constant that has always followed with Zin's attacks is that they attack during the night, presumably to minimize risks, since no matter what Ashia tried, Zin bypassed it without an issue. They recently put their full effort into a way to eliminate the threat. The Sekimeiya exhibition was no more than bait they put out to lure Zin in. That and the alarm they secretly designed were the two main factors of their plan. The tower is equipped with cameras and security. However, Ashia hoped that Zin wouldn't anticipate such an abrupt jump in their measures. There was so much advertising done for this particular showing that everyone in town brought into it. That was the goal, but on the side, Ashia secretly designed the alarm. It was going to be activated whenever the cabinet was forced open. Only one true key of the cabinet was made, and the lock was very carefully designed, only to allow the correct one. The cabinet itself, however, was one they already had, and could easily be broken by force. Obviously, breaking the glass of the cabinet would also activate the alarm. It was done so that any method of getting the Sekimeiya out without the key would trigger the alarm and trap the culprit with no way to escape. What the hell is this about? The shutter could have injured people as they were escaping. No, the mechanism is equipped with a sensor. If anyone had been in front of the shutter before it closed, it would have stopped moving until they stepped away. We all kept silent at the realization that our situation was far more unusual than we thought. The final element of the plan was the room you're currently in, the security room. The alarm, along with blocking off all methods of escape, has other smaller functions such as disabling the elevator, some lights, and communication methods. The maximum time the exit was going to be shut was 12 hours. Maximum time? Does that mean it can be less than that? Yes, but please don't get your hopes up. After the alarm, the Zin members that got trapped inside would have no other way to leave. You might have noticed the security room's door is sturdier than the others. The last function of the alarm was to lock it. Like the cabinet's lock, once the security room's door is locked, it can only be opened with the actual key, which is possessed by the security staff. Every staff member worked to put this mechanism and plan into effect, and they knew very well what they had to do. Today, only Kachikuji was present. A security member would be inside the room constantly monitoring the cameras. Of course, this is always done. Zin have shown multiple ways to overcome the cameras, but this time this was of little importance. During the time anyone from Zin was trapped, the security member in the security room would only have one job: to relay information between the inside and the outside. This is why the security room is the only place where communication methods aren't cut off. Once it was all over, the security staff would be able to unlock the exit before the 12 hours. To ultimately ensure nothing funny happened, the request would have to be approved by Ashia family themselves. Only then would the exit be open before the maximum time. So you're saying they won't accept it? No, they can't. They don't know why, but they are unable to even access the command that would let them give their approval to open the exit. They aren't sure, but most likely something went wrong. Given the cause of the alarm is unknown, the most reasonable explanation is a malfunction. Ooh. Kacha, you knew about this function, right? So why did you say we'd be here for 12 hours without mentioning you had a chance to open the shutter earlier? Back then I didn't think I was allowed to explain the mechanism and reason behind the alarm, but I was certain we wouldn't be leaving before the 12 hours were up. When I was still in this room, I noticed the same thing the Ashia family noticed. I didn't have permission to access command. That meant we would have to spend the full time here. In case something went wrong, the failsafe was designed. The exit would always open 12 hours after it was locked. Obviously that much time ensured that if a Zin member had gotten trapped, they couldn't escape when the time ran out. How is it possible you don't have access to it? Can't you fix it? I'm afraid I wouldn't know where to start. I have no clue what caused it, but if the Ashia family is encountering the same error, it doesn't look like something I could solve. Then isn't there a way to take down the shutters from the outside? No. The attack was assumed to come during the night, but it happened this morning instead. I don't know a lot of details about this, but evidently Ashia were going to trap at least one Zin member inside and try and squeeze the information over the security room microphone. No one really knows how big Zin is, but the shutters were designed in such a way that in case members came to rescue their trapped comrades, they couldn't do anything from the outside. This is why, in much the same way, we can't do anything to break them down without a method that also would collapse the entire building. They may look flimsy, but I guarantee you they're not. I'm confused. Kata, if you use about this, why did you ever leave the security room? Why didn't you use the microphone to talk to the trapped culprits as you'd all agreed? To tell you the truth, I did. All of you were unconscious, though, so you didn't hear me. I didn't receive any reply, and since the most important cameras had been disabled, I wanted to see for myself what had happened. So all this means there's no way out right now, at all. Yes, Aisha informed us of this plan days ago. They were certain Zin would attack, so the police had to be caught up. Since today was the last possible day, we were all anticipating Zin to come during the night, long before 9 AM. 9 a.m. I myself was in the tower, aware that the chances of theft were incredibly likely. I kept talking to Ashia staff about what the procedure would be if something were to happen. Sure enough, after thinking about it, I recalled having seen him next to the entrance door while we'd been waiting. I left before the hallway doors opened. We were told something had still happened, and one of us had been pretty insistent in saying there'd be an attack. That's why we stayed outside and were able to restrain everyone who evacuated very quickly. I believe this is the scenario Ashia would be going with. This was an attack by Zin intended to subvert their expectations and target a lot of regular gems instead of the Sekimeiya. Maybe it would have been a success if it hadn't been for the new alarm. The suitcase was noticed right away and all the gems were retrieved. It's possible the alarm went off due to a malfunction, which is also preventing them from opening the exit before the maximum time. Right now, all they can do is wait and tell you guys to do the same. They don't believe anything else has happened and most likely be calling this their victory. It's very likely they intend to compensate the people who got innocently trapped once the time runs out. I should bloody well hope so. I'm sorry I can't be of more help. While some details are still unclear, it more or less makes sense. Alright, is there anything else you should tell us? I don't believe so. There's nothing you should worry about besides having to be in there for a while. I personally apologise for all the inconvenience. I'm sure all of you will be indemnified. No one wanted to mention that someone among us might not have been so innocently trapped, and instead we stayed silent, thinking about the hours that awaited us. Was that really everything though? Was it all just a malfunction? Was Zin actually involved? I knew many things didn't quite add up. What the hell had happened to Naomi on top of it all? Recently, there'd been a similar attack in Yashibana where smoke had also been released. Assuming that Zin were involved in the attack on the tower, it was a pretty easy leap to assume they'd been behind the other. So what are we going to do? 12 hours is a lot of time. Can we go to the Sekimeiya again? I think you should first reunite with Miss Kapka. After that, make sure not to do anything Ashia might not be happy with, or they could find a way to avoid compensating you. Suripo forced a smile and was about to put an end to the conversation. Suddenly, out of the 3 computer monitors, the leftmost one went black. What happened to the screen? Sai was the one in front of it, was the first to react. Let me see. It's possible the computer stopped recognising the screen. 1 second. Sai's overreaction threw everyone off, including Suripo. That was because we'd only been looking at the middle screen and the computer was still working. The leftmost screen had been displaying nothing but an empty part of the desktop. Regardless, Sai quickly grabbed the mouse Katia had used earlier and navigated to the screen configuration settings. At least you aren't using some custom operating system. I know what I'm looking for. I see. How strange. The left monitor hasn't been detected at all. Does it matter? The computer didn't actually shut down, did it? No, obviously not. We can still see in here. Your sorry, I was just a bit confused. I don't know what caused it though. I just stopped detecting it out of the blue. I mean, honestly, a bit of dust could have got in the HDMI cable. Mine does that all the time. Just randomly stops working. So, yeah. At the moment, I don't know what his t-shirt says, but he is the most suspicious. This guy is suspicious to me. I don't know why he's been represented by a trident. Maybe it has something to do with Sai and the symbol, but you know. I suppose it got to be a different S because our friend is an S. Either which way. He can still be suspicious. You'll have time to figure it out. For now, there are better Suripo never finished that sentence. Before he could, the other screens also went blank. What happened now? It wasn't only the screens this time. The computer seems to have shut down too. How? What the hell? Shiroya, Arena, and Ayla were looking upward. It seems the 3 computer screens weren't the only ones to have turned off. All the security cameras too, or no? The light works, so it can't be a power outage. Did the cable get disconnected? Kate crouched under the desk and looked behind the computer. There's nothing that looks wrong. He pressed the power button multiple times, but the computer refused to start up. What the hell just happened? Was it Naomi? Naomi? We were almost done with Suripo and it was time to look at the recorded footage. Arthur implicated her. She might be responsible for the computer shutting off. Is she listening to us? Kate sprinted out the room and looked to both sides of the hallway. He even picked at the lobby. While he was out and everyone's focus had diverted to the door, I noticed something behind me. Sai had just taken his arm away from the leftmost monitor. When he noticed I was looking at him, our eyes met and he smirked. Before I could think, noise filled the room again. Katai came back panting. It seemed the possibility of being spied on his workroom had really gotten to him. We didn't have to ask to know he'd found nothing. If this was achieved from outside the room, do you know how it could have been done? No, that should have been impossible. As I said earlier, underneath the lobby is the panel that handles the tower's electricity. While it isn't incredibly well protected, it should be impossible to power off the main computer from there. That sounds very strange. Are you sure it wouldn't be possible? I've worked here for many years, so yes. Maybe we should go check anyway. I agree. Let me go with you, esteemed visitor. Without waiting for a reply, Sai grabbed me by my shirt and lightly ushered me out of the room. He did something. It could have been an EMP, but that would have probably taken out all the lights. Maybe he just wiggled the cable connection, but that wouldn't have taken out the computer unless he kicked the plug. So I don't know. He's definitely suspicious. Hey, wait. He didn't wait. It's fine, I'll be right back. That must have been enough for Shiraya, but she didn't follow us. I did actually want to see the panel, so I let Sai do what we wanted. It was better not to put up a fight if it gave me the same result either way. We talked about the room before, so we knew how to access it even though it wasn't marked on the map. Sai started walking without uttering a word and I followed behind. I wanted to ask exactly what was up with him, but the words didn't leave my mouth. We went past the reception desk. Being behind it was a strange feeling, but I didn't have time to look around. As Katai had said, the door to the mechanical room was unlocked. Past it was a very narrow and dark staircase that made a sharp turn to the right. How scary? You go first. His nonchalant way of speaking made it clear he wasn't being serious. It was supposed to be a joke, it didn't seem very appropriate. Nonetheless, I entered the stairwell first. The ceiling became a bit lower, which required me to crouch to advance. Shortly, both of us stepped into the mechanical room after opening a smaller second door. The temperature didn't change, but the light was very dim, much worse in quality than the other ones used throughout the tower. The illumination was worse than the smoke-filled hallways. High up on the wall was the panel Katai described. I had to move aside a low table to walk up to it, but reaching it didn't present a problem. I could easily touch the ceiling with my hand. I looked around me. Past all the cobwebs, I could see the boiler Katai had mentioned, emitting a constant buzzing sound. There were also small worn-out pieces of furniture littered around, presumably because nothing bigger could fit through the staircase. Yeah, it seems he was right. All the switches are on. Yeah, this probably hasn't been used lately. It's covered in dust. I agree. The panel was protected by a plastic cover with a key lock. Every switch had a label on top of it. They were hard to read, but the one labelled security room, just like all the others, was on. Can I ask something? Do you believe a word of what Katai's been saying? What? What do you mean? That took me by surprise. Perhaps not so much the fact that he'd been suspecting Katai, but he'd asked me so suddenly. I mean what he said, everything that Katai said, just know you believe it, right? From the beginning when he found us, he claimed to have searched the entire floor without finding your group, about having monitored the cameras and having tried to open the exit. Remember what he said, that he hadn't found it appropriate to try and talk to the outside, and instead kept looking at the available cameras? You can't seriously tell me you believe that. I don't know. It's true that I thought some of his claims sounded a bit off, but this might be bringing it a bit too far. I can't definitely doubt what he said, that he panicked and prioritised figuring out what was happening before trying to contact anyone. It's strange that he didn't find us, yeah, but he said he hadn't thoroughly examined the floor. He has been helpful to us and let us know how to contact the police. I don't think he's as suspicious as you think. Then I'll put it bluntly. I guarantee you that everything he said has been a lie. Don't trust any of his words. How can you be sure? You're free not to believe me. I told you this because I thought you'd realised it earlier. He smiled the same way as earlier and left the room with a shrug. From his face, all I could make out was he was trying to have fun, but I couldn't tell if he was just messing with me. Now you see, I don't trust this guy. But maybe I should not go with my instincts, because honestly, I don't exactly have the best instincts when it comes to trusting people, especially in game. Or on TV shows or what have you. But yeah. Maybe I shouldn't trust him. I went upstairs. Through the door I saw Sai in hallway B. I wanted to shout at him, but I called up to him instead. As always, he said, the one that's clean. Do you feel like investigating the upper floors? What, let's go back. He ignored me and kept walking forwards. Instead of repeating myself, I felt like being the one to ask something. What do you think happened to Naomi? I couldn't quite grasp Sai's behaviour, but he was also trying to piece things together, and I might have agreed that more meet the eye and that was going on. He didn't seem unintelligent, and since his approach appeared different from mine, his input might have been useful. I couldn't tell you for sure. Katai seemed fine looking through the monitors, but it was also not his priority. This probably means he doesn't think much of Naomi's disappearance, or that he knew we wouldn't spot her even if he looked through all the available cameras. Are you sure she already passed out? I'm almost certain yes. Then it's hard to believe she regained consciousness before a person as big as Akaro did. If she really inhaled the smoke and wasn't there by the time you three woke up, the easy explanation is that she was moved. Who would do that though, and why? How about the only person out of all of us who was conscious at the time? But why? Don't ask me, it certainly makes him look obviously suspicious, so if he still did it, he must have had a good reason. Let's check the Sekimeiya. I entered this hallway so they wouldn't see us from the security room. Why? We turned to the left and opened the event room door. Why else though? We wanted to see if it was still there. If it's not here, Naomi took it. It's as simple as that, so I'm only curious. Sure, go ahead. Be pretty interesting if it weren't here. We would know we hadn't taken it, but the other 5 wouldn't. Not only has this room's camera been blocked off, now they can't access any. Imagine we tell them the cabinet was empty, they would then have 3 suspects. If we look throughout the entire tower and can't find Naomi, do you think they suspect us? They would insist it could only have been us, that Naomi was never trapped to begin with, and we were the only ones to know the truth. How would you suggest we defend ourselves? Don't know. I'm so sure Shiroya would believe me. I honestly doubt they would actually suspect us. You may be right. What if I claim you took off running and came here? That's why we took so long. Why the hell are you acting like this? Don't worry, I won't do that. Let's see. In case it's not here, should we tell them? Of course. Why? We would be certain only Naomi or a mysterious 9th person could have taken it. But from their point of view, we will be possible suspects too. If we didn't tell them, we could force ourselves to split up. Someone would find out that the Sekimeiya was stolen, which would lead to many more possible suspects, and their focus on us would decrease. They'd have no way to know we'd already seen the empty cabinet. It might be unfair for them since we're giving them a bunch of fake suspects, but I'd say it's pretty fair for us since we know we didn't do it, right? I wasn't even sure how to respond to his basic but presumptuous words. I didn't disagree with him, but it was hard for me to humour his attitude. Although I couldn't easily imagine being suspected, the thought of him falsely accusing me was a bit unnerving. Sight didn't make a lot of sense to me unless I assumed he was just messing around for the sake of messing around. Whatever, let's look first. I walked forward and raised the curtain. Unlike before, very few dust particles fell off, leaving the pile on the floor practically unchanged. Here it is. I wanted to say something online, see you're just being paranoid, but he beat me to it. Of course it is. After all, if it weren't, it could only have been Naomi, and that'd be too simple. Are you sure you wouldn't want to think about the other 5 conspiring together and taking it while you were in the mechanical room? Then they could suspect us while they rub their hands. Exactly is your deal. What were you even doing behind the monitor earlier? That's what I was talking about, and you should think about what I told you. I could only sigh. I lowered the curtain and left the room. When we returned to the security room, everyone but Katai was next to the monitors. He was on the ground, and from the looks of it, he hadn't fixed a thing. You were gone for a while. Yeah, we took the time to go to the bathroom. I had no reason not to call him out, but that would have pointlessly complicated things or ended up being exactly what he wanted. His approach to our situation was an enigma. Shiroya was looking right at me, so I just decided to annoy Sai while I moved on. How are things going? Katai's been trying to power the computer back on, but it doesn't seem like he's achieving much there. He appeared to be messing with some cables under the table. After a few seconds he got out and stood up. Let's try again. He pressed the power button, nothing happened. Damn it, I don't know what the problem is. I assume all the power switches were on, correct? Yes. He sighed and kneeled down once again. I don't know what he was trying, but so far it hadn't given him any results. Honestly, first thing you do is check the fuse in the plug. I've had an entire computer not turn on because the fuse in the plug went. Mind you, that was 18 years ago. But I didn't have a PC for a while, so I had just had laptops which didn't have the fuse plug problem. They had 2 problems, but not the fuse plug problem. So yeah. Everyone kept looking at him, even though there wasn't much to observe, as Katai's body covered all that he was doing. Sai's claim played in my mind. I guarantee you that everything he said has been a lie. Don't trust any of his words. Why had Sai sounded so sure, and how was Katai trying to fix the issue? I mean, it makes me think that Sai's part of this Zen group. And maybe Katai is also possibly part of the group. I mean, the only reason you can know everything out of his mouth's been a lie is if he's also involved in it, so he knows that it's a lie. Because it's an interesting thing to take. It's like basically the werewolf being on the villager's side, but he knows the other one's the werewolf. To coin a thing from a game that I like playing. Why had Sai sounded so sure, and how was Katai trying to fix the issue? If Katai was part of that group Zin and been shamelessly working under the pretense of security, their massive success rate could begin to be explained. Now I've got the hiccups. Under the table he kept sighing methodically, while making noise with the cables. I can't figure out what the problem is. It could be the electricity stopped coming from an outlet. I've been trying many things, but under the table is just an incomprehensible mass of cables, and I'm not sure the problem is here. Some seconds after nobody had answered, he repeated the cycle of trying to power on the computer, kneeling down again, messing further with the cables and standing back up. I apologise. I don't see how to fix this. I don't know what the cause was, nor what's the remaining problem. All I could do here has proven useless. We understand. The way it happened was very strange. Do you not have any idea what could have gone wrong? Everything just turned off instantly, and this is the office where you work. I just said it. I can't begin to think of anything. However, it wasn't all instant, was it? This monitor was the first one to stop functioning. He was talking, of course, about the leftmost computer monitor. He approached it and examined it carefully. Everything looks fine. It pains me to say, but I'm completely lost. Had Sai created the situation? The smoke he'd given me alongside what he'd said seemed to indicate that he'd at least had something to do with it. Hey, Katai, are you done with the cables? Since you were down there, you haven't tried to power on the computer. Since you were last down there, you haven't tried to power on the computer. Why not? Oh, you're right. I did this a few times while you two were gone, but nothing worked. This last time, it didn't actually change anything important, so it hardly mattered. While he said that, he approached the computer with a single finger. He pressed the power button. Okay, at this point, Sai is definitely messing. There's some sort of EMP type device, like some sort of, I don't know, I don't actually know, because there's got to be some sort of targeted electrical tomfoolery. But yeah. In the blink of an eye, the middle screen lit up and a sound that indicated the computer had begun to run echoed through the narrow room. Sai met Katai's eyes quietly, and Isla was the first to break the silence. It's finally working, right? Great. Yes, it seems so. Do you think you were the one to fix it? There's no way. This is as strange as it powering off. I don't really think I even ended up changing anything since the last time I tried it. How bizarre. Yes, it very much is. Do you think this was also done from outside the room? I can't tell. It's possible the delivery of electricity was a problem and it just fixed itself. Wouldn't the system have powered on automatically had that happened? Possibly. Katai sat back in his chair, grabbed the mouse once the computer finished booting up. To bring the keyboard closer to him, he logged onto his user account. What happened to the cameras, though? Even though the computer had been brought back online, a dozen powered-off screens still remained on the wall. This computer is connected to the entire tower. That includes the computers upstairs and the security system. I must first initiate the program that will display the footage up there in real time. Upon saying that, he double-clicked on a security camera logo, and a program with a messy interface covered the entire screen. This was also running earlier as well, but it was minimized. The cameras won't be shown without it open. So looking at the taskbar, I did recognize it from earlier, and it was the same one he'd used to change the cameras being displayed. Katai introduced gibberish as the username and a password that was shown encrypted for us. After he pressed the enter key, access was granted. Alright, this button will start up the system. Below the text, logged in as Katai Kuji, was the button that read Initialize Camera Monitoring, which Katai quickly clicked on. However, upon doing so, an error window showed up. The text, couldn't detect video footage, was written on it. What? What the hell does this mean? I've never seen this error message. I'm guessing it can't detect video footage. So, archival footage was erased. It could have been some sort of worm if there was a USB port on the back of one of the monitors. Because sometimes there are, you know. So I could have introduced like some sort of virus that erased the footage. Could have been something Katai did. I don't know. Is it not letting you display the footage? Yes, usually after pressing this button, the screen would turn on and automatically display the live feed the cameras are recording. What if you check the C footage? Yes, that's what I was going to try. The cursor controlled by Cat Eye have hovered over and clicked on the archive footage button. Once again, an error window followed by an obnoxious sound appeared, containing the text, no archive footage detected, no camera system detected. Okay, what the hell is this? This has never happened before. That's out, I see. The camera system hasn't been detected. Sai made his way out the room and returned before anyone had time to be confused. I looked at one of the security cameras. It's shooting a tiny green light. That means it's currently functioning and recording, right? Yes, if the green light's there, it means the camera's recording. So if the problem is we can't currently access the live footage or look at the recordings, the cameras still work. Yes, I think so, but for some reason the computer won't connect to the system. Looking at the recorded footage easily sounded too good to be true. Anyway, I'd be doubting we'd find anything in the recording since the relevant camera had been disabled by the smoke, but it was true that it could have given us crucial information, especially regarding Naomi. Well, let's talk to the police again. They may know what caused us. You're right, we should be able to still do that. Give me a second. Cat Eye did everything he'd done the last time. When a small window appeared, he inputted a password and pressed the enter key. Access denied appeared in red letters below the login information. What? Access denied? What the fuck does it mean by that? That's what I was about to say. I know I'm repeating myself here, but this has never happened before. I'll try again. He re-entered the login information 4 times, but that same message kept appearing. I don't understand this. Is that scene your authority has been revoked? It must, but why? Why would that happen now? It's not like we can contact the outside to help. It's not like we can contact the outside to ask. I know you said earlier the alarm cut off access to the internet, but everything's out of order anyway, so there's no hope in checking. No harm in checking. Yes, you're right, it might not be disabled. Cat Eye double-clicked on the browser icon and we went with a white screen containing the text, "There is no internet connection." To further make sure, he typed in a common URL, but the same screen appeared. I guess you won't be that lucky. I'm sorry, I don't think I can do anything about this. It's okay, it's not your fault. If we can't access the security cameras or connect to the outside, our priority should be to investigate this whole building. Naomi's still a mystery. That's true, we should try and find her and gather any useful information we can. But how could this have happened? I don't understand it. The timing was too coincidental. Did Ashia remotely power off the computer to revoke my access? All I could do with it was talk to them. I'm still going with computer virus introduced in the room, just needed to gain access to the security room. Sai was doing something behind that monitor that went off. It's possible that he, plugged it in and then tweaked the cord. And then replugged it in and got the USB out once it went off. And that it powered down the system, revoked all the access and stuff somehow. I mean, it could be, he's part of a Shia family and this is all a big test or a trap for Katya. Or Cat Eye, whatever his name is. I'm really bad with names. Literally on the damn screen, I'm bad with names. WindowNet. It's called WindowNet. My notes. Well, last time I tried to put notes in, I got one sentence and accidentally clicked OK, and then now I can't edit my notes. So that could be one of the bugs they're trying to fix. But I don't have any other notes to add, particularly yet. Maybe the problem with the security system is a side effect of whatever happened. I will stay here for a bit while you go. I have a couple more things to do. Such as? Well, I'd like to investigate more about what caused the shutdown. The security system not being detected is very strange. In addition, it seems my authority might have been revoked. You must understand how odd of a situation this is for me. I'd like to see if I can figure something out. However, there are a few things I'll work on for sure. This computer is still connected to the rest of the tower, so I can undo a few smaller effects of the alarms, so I can try and give back power to the elevator and some lights. Those don't require any kind of login. I'll catch up with you all when I'm done. I see. That sounds fair to me. We'll go then. He definitely knows more. Maybe he's an undercover cop. Should we really be splitting up? It'd be better if we moved in groups at least. There's no real point to any of you staying here. I'm the only person who knows how to access these parts of the system. It would be better to have the elevator available than not. Go ahead. Go on ahead. Alright, good luck. It's weird to think that Naomi's out there and hasn't tried to reach us, so I'm a bit worried. You're right. Let's go with them, Hyla. I mean, it would make sense for the mum and kid to stay with the security guy where it's safe. Everyone started to look a bit more tense in the hallway, maybe because we hadn't yet seen anything beyond the first floor, or maybe because the reality of being trapped was creeping in. I looked at the cameras and noticed the tiny green recording light could only be noticed on some of them, as the dried smoke fully covered a good number. We walked together a few steps until we all stopped silently. Our task was to investigate a huge building we'd never entered before, only to track down someone who could have been hiding with malicious intent. Isla started talking casually to Irina about their daily life. I didn't disturb them, figuring it was better if Isla remained as calm as possible. I leaned against the wall next to Shoroya. I don't think she wanted to talk, so I kept quiet. The handrail made the position uncomfortable, but I tried not to mind it. Instead, I focused on thinking. What exactly had happened in the security room? What had Sai done? I looked at him. He wore a silent, carefree expression, appearing almost on a different plane from the rest of us. Earlier, I seem to have lost. Looming is very quiet. Earlier when I looked at him after Katai rushed out the room, he took his hand out from behind the leftmost monitor. What exactly did I see? Let me take a different approach. Assuming the monitoring powering off was his doing, what could the reason be? What did he do right after the monitor stopped working? We tried to see what had happened, but if he'd been the one to cause it, that couldn't have been his goal. After considering a couple of possibilities, an idea came to me. If I was right, what he told me later made sense. I guarantee you that everything he's been saying is a lie. Don't trust any of his words. At that point, what he did to the monitor is probably confirming his suspicions. He was right. A lot of the things Katai has been saying have been questionable at best, but now that I think about it, there was one major thing that I overlooked. Katai grabbed the doorknob, and upon turning it, he tried to push the door forward, however it didn't budge. Oh right, I had locked it earlier. Let me see. I bet Sai noticed this. Katai didn't think the door would be locked. He was quick to make up a lie. He said that since it's an important room, he thought it appropriate to lock it before going outside to inspect things. He even claimed to have done it because the room contained the single way to communicate with the outside, when later he showed us that you could only enable it with a password that only the security staff know. It's probably not that he thought the door would be open, but he didn't realise it wouldn't be. After all, we know what actually locked it: the alarm. Siripo explained to us the entire function and mechanisms behind the alarm. The person inside the security room would relay information between the people that got trapped and the outside. The door of the security room would close alongside the exit, and it would be impossible to open it with anything but the right key. Meaning that if I'm right, from the time I heard the alarm to the time we entered the security room, no one was inside it. In other words, Katai had never been inside the security room. This must have been a huge lie, and most likely something Asai assumed after noticing Katai's actions before he opened the door, or when the alarm's functions were explained. A lot of things Katai said involved him being inside the security room during the time the smoke was released. Seeing the smoke appearing out of nowhere through the cameras, looking at the available ones and not seeing anyone, not having tried to contact the outside, not being allowed to input his command to open up the exit. All of these claims are possible if I assume he was never in the security room during that period of time. Even seeing the smoke through the cameras, then exiting the room before the alarm went off, would be far from believable. This would have both stained his clothes and knocked him out. I should question something important. If he truly was never in the room, Katai's clothes weren't stained. However, he knew about the smoke. Did Irina's group tell him and he acted as if he'd seen it through the cameras? Did he see it from far away, or did he have another way to know about it without personally having seen it? To maintain his claim having seen the smoke appearing quickly through the cameras, it's possible he knew it would appear and quickly left the security room with a mask and spare clothes right before the alarm sounded. Like this, he would have been able to lie about having been in the security room the whole time. After all, it would have been too risky for him to leave before the smoke was released. This is what he did. He must have used the time we were unconscious to do something. What's for certain is that aside from having seen the smoke through the cameras, he wasn't in the room by the time the alarm went off. All his other claims became impossible. But he also might not have been on this floor during the attack. If he showed up later, that could explain why he found Irina's group before ours. They told him what had happened and he made up a lie accordingly. This would mean everything he's told us has been a fabrication. I did think it was odd that he tried to open the door and then remembered it had been locked. But I hadn't picked up on that because honestly, I can lock my door, go down the stairs, and then go, shit, did I lock my door? And have to come back up the stairs to check that I locked my door. I have texted my neighbour when I've been on a train to go, can you check my door please? Because I've gone home for Christmas or Easter or whatever, and I can't remember if I locked it. So, I'm not going to judge anyone for having not remembered that they didn't lock the door. And one time I did lock the door, but it didn't catch, and it was open, which is why, of course, I'm paranoid. But that's one time in, 11 and a half years. I've also gone out for a walk and left my balcony door wide open, and gone to sleep and left my balcony door wide open. So, yeah, there's no judgment here. So that's why I didn't pick up on that, because honestly, that seemed very realistic to me. But if it lines up with everything else, yeah. Why didn't he check on the event room if it was supposed to have been triggered by that particular gem being stolen, and there's no security cameras that, Yeah. Anyway, once I assume Kato was never in the room, the exact reason for that lie is not too important. What it means is that he's untrustworthy and that it has an ulterior motive. And it's very possible his authority as a security member has been revoked. The timing is too precise to have been a coincidence. It could be that Ashia and the police figured something out about him and removed his privilege as a security member. However, they'd know that doing so would prevent us from contacting them again, so they must have had a very good reason. Then what Sai did to confirm his theory, he pulled it off shamelessly in front of everybody. I'm sure he could have done it later alone, but it's possible he feared Kato would have prevented it with a new lie. Right before Sai started, he asked Suripo, is there anything else you should tell us? He wanted to check something as soon as possible before Kato could interfere again. Once Suripo said he told us everything we need to know, Sai unplugged the cord behind the leftmost monitor, the one he was next to. This was only done to have a justification for checking the screen settings. He quickly grabbed the mouse and opened them from the desktop. I see, how strange. The left monitor isn't being detected at all. However, that's not what Sai was actually looking at. When we all entered the security room, Katai quickly went to use the computer. Show what the last person to use it had been doing. I bet Sai's goal was actually to look at how long it'd take the computer to enter suspended state, which is information found on the same setting screen. That's because Katai said he'd used it while he'd been in the room. Shortly after that, the alarm went off. Tried to use my computer to look up information. Okay, we know the alarm went off at approximately 9:05, thanks to the time the computer displayed and that it had been suspended when we entered the room. For example, the screen settings showed that an hour of inactivity had been needed to enter that state. Sai could have confirmed that Katai had not been there at all. And apparently did confirm it. That was when he was sure that Katai had been lying. That also explained his subsequent action. When I saw Sai taking his arm out from behind the leftmost monitor, he'd just plugged the cord back in. Yes. Okay, so not a virus. Despite sounding risky, he had nothing left to lose, and if he waited longer, Katai could have prevented it. And Sai's timing had been great. Right after that, all the machines had stopped working. Probably not been his doing, even though Katai had implied otherwise. Okay. He said about the monitor stopped functioning, that as if both things had been connected, but I don't think that was right. Sai unplugged the first monitor, but the rest must have had a different cause. One thing is for sure, Sai has confirmed his theory is now certain Katai has fed us lie after lie, and I should probably think the same. Is this it then? Do I have to admit that Katai is a blatant liar with an ulterior motive? I thought about everything that happened to us up until then, and shortly noticed another inconsistency Katai had presented very early on. That one had been later contradicted by himself. He said the alarm and then the smoke. However, just after that, he said the smoke had disabled the cameras instantly. Given the alarm went off some seconds after the smoke had been released, he could only have seen smoke after hearing the alarm if he'd been outside the security room. It's a bit strange that he said that, but he was correct in saying the smoke had disabled the cameras. He planned his phrasing well enough to sound as if he'd been in the room, to the point of realising that the cameras would have become useless. It followed he wouldn't have mentioned the huge inconsistency of having seen the smoke after hearing the alarm. There's a reason for this. It must be that without looking at the monitors, he knew the smoke would have left them useless. However, he must not have thought about it too hard, or else he would have never contradicted himself very blatantly. There is one simple way this could have happened. If he designed the plan, he would have known the effects of the smoke, but would not have thought of what they would have entailed if he'd truly been in the security room. I didn't want to believe that, not because I trusted a stranger by default, but because I wasn't sure if I was only deluding myself by believing it. I went back to my previous thought. Could Katai have still been inside the security room until he'd left it before the alarm had played? That would have made him a bit more trustworthy, even if it wasn't much. The problem was, once again, his unstained clothes. Even if he'd changed clothes, his face and hair would have been noticeably stained. Technically, there was a way to get around that. I knew Hallway B had been hit by the smoke by the point I noticed the lack of light under the door. However, I couldn't be sure the same thing could be said of Hallway A. The third and last section that had been inundated, we'd only seen it filled with smoke after waking up. Even though, realistically, if he left before he saw the smoke through the cameras, he would have mentioned that Hallway A hadn't yet been stained by that point. This only confirmed the fact that he wasn't in the room from the time the alarm went off to the point we entered it. It could be that he saw the smoke disabling the cameras, left the room, and then the alarm locked it. If this happened, the smoke in Hallway A must have been released afterwards. Finally, if I'm only pointlessly trying to reduce the number of lies Katai has been spitting, it could be that it was in the room but never touched the computer. Then the suspended timer wouldn't mean anything, but lying about having used it seemed pointless. Is there a way to go against Kasai's confirmed theory? I like this guy. His thought pattern is basically like my thought pattern, because this is what I do when I'm streaming, and I do all this talking outside. But I don't need to do it now because the character's doing it for me. So, at this point, I am now going, I should trust Sai in that he noticed the lie, he pointed it out to me, and was magnanimous enough to assume that I'd already seen it. I don't trust Katai, even though he's the supposed authority figure and the one that I'm supposed to trust. Sorry, hand cramp. At the moment, the ladies are not really doing anything other than existing as a plot point, I guess, and the missing person is the problem. Where did Naomi go? And if Katai was out of the room when the smoke was being deployed, is he the one that deployed the smoke? Did the smoke somehow accidentally trigger the alarm? Was the alarm triggered by somebody else? Did Naomi have a panic button? Oh, that would be a good plan. If Naomi had some kind of panic button that, you know, triggered the alarm. I mean, I think, you know, in which case we're going to find a pile of stained clothing somewhere, right? And if he'd have had like a balaclava on his head, then his hair wouldn't have got stained and he could have easily washed his face in the bathroom. He had 15 minutes while we were all out. I suppose only one. If the computer's current time is incorrect, the time shown in the screen settings could be refuted, considering that when we talked to Suripo, at no point was the actual time mentioned. If when we checked the time it wasn't actually 9:41, it could all hold up. The computer was an hour behind and the real time was like 10:45. We would have been unconscious for longer than we thought and everything had fit. Katai could have been in the security room and enough time for the suspended state to be reached could have passed. However, this single last possibility was designed by the only person who didn't fall unconscious, Katai himself. Yes, this matches the matches the amount of time I stayed. It seemed it was unquestionable. For one reason or another, Katai had lied about what he'd been doing during the incident. He hadn't been where he should have been, and he continuously claimed to do things that would have been impossible. Before we'd all entered the security room, he hadn't been fast enough to think that the alarm would have locked the door. He'd simply tried to open it manually, as he hadn't locked it himself. What is Katai after? Why did he lie so much? After all, he was the one that told us about the way to communicate with the outside. All of his actions have been strange. Hang on, I haven't considered this, but what if he isn't who he claimed to be? Or could it be he isn't actually part of security staff? He refused to explain anything because it would have been confidential. But then Suripo didn't have an issue doing so. What if he simply didn't know anything? The only thing he said was he'd be locked inside the building for 12 hours and that he knew of the way to communicate with the outside. His clothes weren't stained, but he knew about the smoke. He had a safe place he should have stayed in, but he wasn't in it. He had the security room key, but he didn't think the door would be locked. He'd investigated the floor, but he hadn't looked in the event room. But he did have passwords, which he could have hacked or used some sort of social engineering. I mean, literally, the humans are the weak point in the digital age. Secrets and Lies by Bruce Schneier. Read it at university, still 100% valid. Literally, like, you know, the movie Hackers. A lot of it was unbelievable, but, you know, Password of God, extremely believable. Passwords on post-its and printouts. People still do that. If this was all his plan, it could be that he borrowed the name of Katai, an actual security staff member, not only his name, but also his clothes and room, and the clothes the Katai we know had been wearing, stained by the smoke, would have been disposed of. Saripo admitted that a security staff member hadn't evacuated the tower, and he was familiar with the name Katai Kuji, but this could mean that the real Katai Kuji is still trapped with us. Maybe his body was hidden in a spot out of the camera's reach. Saripo talked to Katai, but he was a simple police officer and no way to confirm that the voice belonged to the actual staff member. On top of that, he never actually saw us. Which the kid had confirmed, Isla. Since I couldn't arrive at a conclusion, I lowered my head, having been lost in thought for a while. Shiroya was standing next to me, looking almost as detached as I was sure I did. Shiroya? Are you okay? Yeah, I am. I rubbed at my face with one hand and pulled her aside, speaking in a hushed tone. Shiroya, it's fine. We're fine. Naomi is fine too. You can't let this stuff get to you. I'm not. Don't get sucked into some depressive loop, okay? I'm here. We're gonna find her. I mean it. I'm sorry. It was just the camera footage. The police will recover it. You're right. Somewhat satisfied, I patted her shoulder and stepped back into the middle of the hallway. I'm guessing the computer's somewhat disconnected. If it was done to prevent Katai from deleting stuff, hence with the access being revoked, it could still be fine. The archive footage could still be fine. But yeah, we're going to find a body at some point. Possibly clothes. More definitely a body. Scarface keeps coming online. That's like the third time. Somewhat satisfied, I patted her shoulder and stepped back into the middle of the hallway. Close by, Isla, who'd finished her talk with her mother, was walking to the event room. We were supposed to investigate the building, but we'd all silently agreed to wait a bit, either out of anxiety or hesitation. Where are you going? I want to see it again. Without further explanation, she quickly made her way into the room. Irina followed behind her. The rest of us did the same, since staying by ourselves didn't seem very useful. The previous 2 weeks had been difficult for Shiroya and me. I knew the cheerful Shiroya I was fond of would take a long time to come back, but all things considered, both of us were handling the situation pretty well. I was just concerned about pushing her too far. I want to know what happened. Ida was in front of the cabinet. I entered the room just as she was about to uncover the curtain, and Akara and Sai came silently after me. Look at how pretty it is. Now that the light's gotten a bit better, I like it even more. I agree. It's got a very elegant look. Akara and Sai walked in further. However, once Akara stopped, Sai did not. He placed himself in front of the cabinet and stared at the Sekimeiya. In the same way, everyone else just stared at him while he thought to himself. Then with the same neutral expression, he scrolled the glass down. What are you doing? Instead of responding, he reached to touch the Sekimeiya. Well, that's what I thought. Instead, he just grabbed it and took it out of the cabinet. Hey, what's up with you? Didn't Katai say not to take it out? I guess he did. However, right now he's in the security room doing God knows what. What are you trying to do? Isla extended her arm and let out a charming, Can I have it? Yeah, of course. Here. I looked at the camera in the upper right and saw the flickering green light. After handing Aisha's precious gem to the 9-year-old, Sai answered Akara. I was just considering that what I said earlier might have been false, just in case he's not been the most sincere person. What part of it? I'm talking about when he said that the Sekimeiya has to be kept in a cool place. I'm just talking the possibility of him said to scare us from taking it out. Why would he lie like that? And really, why would the cabinet have this cold function other than it's beneficial for the Sekimeiya? Why would he lie? I just said it so that we keep it in the cabinet. The cold function could very well be beneficial, but he made it sound essential. And look. Sai pointed at Isla, who seemed to be enjoying her time despite the serious situation. She was clearly delighted at being able to hold the Sekimeiya, something she would never have been able to do during normal circumstances. So, I know we said when we come back from the thing, having checked on the Sekimeiya, that we'd been to the bathroom, but I'm guessing our hands and faces are still dirty, so, that's why our friend looked at us and went, You're clearly lying, because you're still got a mucky face. Had I gone to the bathroom, I'd definitely been washing my damn face. No way I would have been able to put with crud on my face. Drying on my face. But that's me, not this character. Anyway. Right now, the Sekimeiya looks perfectly fine to me. That's not inside a cabinet that provides it with a very low temperature. Strange, isn't it? You don't know how the temperature might damage it. It could slowly crack, which would be very bad. Its strongest point is how smooth it is, right, Isla? Isla nodded strongly. She definitely agreed, as she wouldn't stop fiddling with him. You're right, I was just testing what would happen. What if the Sekimeiya had melted after getting it out? Do you know the consequences that would follow? And Katai would have been telling the truth. Right now, the Sekimeiya looks perfectly normal to me, and it's not like Katai said exactly what a higher temperature would do. He was just told a low one was needed. Don't worry, though. If it had melted, we would all said he'd forgotten to warn us, and they would have busted his ass. I don't think that's something Katai made up. Naomi's also said something similar. As if he'd been summoned, Katai appeared behind the open door. Isla, plenty aware of impending trouble, instinctively hid the Sekimeiya behind her back, but she wasn't fast enough. What are you guys doing here? Why is the Sekimeiya out of the cabinet? Rather, what were you doing in the security room? Did you find a way to restore the security system or contact the outside again? No, nothing worked. I did undo some of the effects of the alarm, though. The elevator's now functioning and proper illumination has been restored. Sounds great. What do you mean, sounds great? Why did you get the Sekimeiya out? I told you how important it is not to remove it from the cabinet. Katai, who looked and was probably rightfully angry, walked forward and forcibly took the Sekimeiya out of Isla's hands. She gave him a blank, depressing look in response. Important why? What is the higher temperature going to do? It looks perfectly fine to me. Don't tell me it's a real egg, right? It must be kept cold so it doesn't hatch. That's what I said. That's what I said. I'm like, dragon egg. Oh, nearly out of tea and we're nearly out of time. I will, what will I do? Let's get us to a point. Let's say give half an hour. I've got half an hour. Hopefully you're enjoying the story. I'm certainly intrigued. I don't know whether I'll do another stream or whether I will just leave it on a cliffhanger. Though that would be kind of mean because it's technically out, on consoles. We'll see. We'll see. We might put it in the backlog and maybe play some more later. But also, it depends. If I'm intrigued, I might play more tonight. Listen, kid, I know you may find this a boring situation and you're trying to stay entertained. However, you should understand how serious this is. It seems like Katai had correctly assumed that it had been Sai's idea. I don't know what the effects will be. I don't know if they'll happen immediately, but I know one thing. I know that my superiors told me no matter what the circumstances, the Sekimeiya could never be taken out of the cabinet. And while they were saying it, their eyes were as serious as they could have been. The cameras here are disabled, so I'm sure you think you could do as you please without facing consequences. For your own good, or for our own entire good, rather, do not think of doing this again. Katai placed the Sekimeiya back in the cabinet, shut the glass on the curtain, and looked into Sai's eyes as he finished. Sai kept staring back unfazed, but his expression had slightly changed. If I had to guess what he was thinking, it was probably something on the lines of, "You're one hell of an actor." However, to me, it didn't look like Katai was lying. I didn't rule it out, but I could believe he was very worried the orders he'd been given wouldn't be followed, foreseeing the punishment he'd been dealt by the Ashir family. Yeah, sure. We need to find Naomi's key. And possibly Naomi, but definitely the key so we could lock it. Then it'd be more safe. I don't know why you don't seem to be able to believe me. I can't tell you everything, but it's going to make you feel better. I can tell you all that I know about the Sekimeiya. Maybe I can earn your trust like this. He didn't only look at Sai, but the rest of us. This is called breathing space. Suddenly, he seemed very serious about proving his sincerity. Perhaps he felt that everyone had been suspecting him in some way. Again, I was told about this very briefly, only to have the needed context as part of the security staff. I can't elaborate much on it, but given that all that Surupo said, it's probably fine if I tell you the basic outline I know. Scarface is back. Instead of saying anything, everyone stayed silent, intrigued by whatever Katai could have to say. As you already know, Sekimeiya was no more than bait for Zim. After the last time the tower was attacked on the 24th of November, Ashir began to look for something they could use. Yushibana is now full of people who dedicate their lives to gemstone vacation and distraction. The number of them increased exponentially when the tower's opening informed people of the valuable gems in nearby mountains. For many people, going and finding these all around the mountains became a successful gamble. Sekimeiya was found by a single person who did just that on the 27th of November. Another common practice upon finding a rare or valuable gem is informing the Ashir family with hopes they'll be interested in it. For this reason, we were the first ones to be informed of the Sekimeiya. It worked perfectly for Ashir, as it was described as very unique. Regardless of its actual value, it did look special, so that was enough to work as the bait they needed. After paying the original finder for the Sekimeiya and their silence, they purposely touted the Sekimeiya's value as hard as they could. The first mention of the Sekimeiya by that name was made on the 29th. As you probably know, Ashir let everyone hear they were in possession of something incredibly rare and that it'd be shown today on the 15th of December. Every night until today, we'd been expecting Zin's attack. Everyone was led to think she had the rarest find in a while, so as Suripu said earlier, regardless of its actual initial worth, after all the publicity, the Sekimeiya was extremely valuable for Zin. We sold many tickets for today's event. You saw how far the line of people extended in the lobby. Upon realising Zin could pass up the bait, Ashia still went with the second option, which was following with what they'd said and letting the Sekimeiya they'd praised non-stop be seen. Naomi was instructed into spitting out a bunch of made-up facts about it and its worth during her guided tour to try and justify all the build-up. To add interaction and lengthen the visit time, the visitors were all going to touch its surface, but only inside the cabinet. To tell you the truth, Zin did actually attempt to steal the Sekimeiya once. Suripo had no reason to inform you of this, but almost as soon as its existence was announced, Zin made a move for it. As you can see, their plan ended in failure. We even came close to catching someone from Zin for the first time, but they were able to escape. This was almost Ashia's success, but this information was never published, even though it would have been seen as Zin's first failure. The reason was they wanted to keep up the charade and put the plan in motion to catch Zin for real. The Sekimeiya wasn't in the building yet, so the mechanism we designed wasn't activated. Additionally, even though Zin were the ones to try and steal it, Ashia had no way to prove it. Since the circumstances were unusual and everyone knew they wanted to defeat Zin, people could have thought they'd made it up as no members had been caught. That's all I can say about this. Now, the cold temperature rule was not something Ashia realised, but something the original finder instructed. They said according to the time they'd spent with it indoors, to preserve and make sure the Sekimeiya wasn't damaged, it had to always be kept at a cold temperature. The fact that they knew that putting it at a higher temperature could damage it implies they did so at one point and noticed the damaging effects. As you said, Sai, after you all took it out for a bit, it seemed to be fine. They probably did the same and found out that leaving out for longer could be harmful. Ashia did not particularly care, so they naturally accepted and followed that single rule without much of a concern. This cabinet, alongside others that also possesses temperature functions, already existed, so it was a convenient place to keep it after stylising it a little. Since it was found pretty high up the mountain behind the tower, the temperature there was already very low. At their request, the location where it was found was revealed to Ashia. A vast mountain range surrounds Yushibana, which I'm sure you see daily. On Iran, a mountain close to this building, there is a little upward path that was much more visible a few years ago. That part of the range has almost been abandoned because when the reason to go to the mountain switched to gemstone extraction, it was determined not when many were to be found on Iran. Eventually up the mountain is a small field that's pretty well hidden. It's not easy to spot and you have to deviate onto a smaller path. All I was told is that it's a fairly hidden place. There, this was found. Katai pointed at the cabinet. It was all interesting and consistent with what we knew, but my mind had gone someplace else. As I expected when I looked at Shiroi, she was already looking at me. It seemed she thought the same thing. Bizarre as it sounded, the location Katai had just described matched perfectly with the place where we used to play as kids. Past that grassy terrain, there used to be a cabin she and I would frequently visit. It was the same mountain, the same narrow path, and maybe the same plain and grassy field that would now be covered in snow. It seemed pointless to think much of it. We haven't been up there for more than a decade, but back in the day it was the perfect hidden place for us to go and spend our time. Not once had we seen anyone else there, but eventually going to the mountains just to play was seen as rude by the people who tried to make a daily living on them. Admittedly, we didn't want to have to do anything with the strangers on the mountain, which decreased the frequency of our visits until we finally stopped going altogether. The final visit was something we hadn't even realised was final. Do you remember? Yeah, of course. I'm not sure the place is the same, but thinking back on those times made me happy. You're right, we used to have a lot of fun there. Reminiscing evoked a very strange feeling within me. When the weather was ideal, we would spend entire afternoons in our unreachable hidden place, playing all sorts of different games. We brought things from home every day we went to make it ours. Even though if you were to look at Shiroi, you may not have believed it, her usual self was a very cheerful one, so remembering some of those early memories was bittersweet. On the other hand, after I looked at her, she was smiling and wore an expression that had lately disappeared from her face. The memories we shared from that time were very special. No matter what I tried to say, I hadn't been able to cheer her up. That might have been the first time in 2 weeks she clearly reacted positively to anything, and I probably knew why. These memories were so old that Amelia had not yet appeared in our lives. That was why Shiroi was able to think about them without sparkling the negative reactions that obfuscated everything else. Ooh, maybe somebody died. Maybe we should go back one day and see what it looks like now. Yeah, that's a good idea. Even though her smile had only slightly faded, she seemed to genuinely mean that. It was reassuring to hear, and it made me trust that everything would eventually get better. Katai had kept talking while I'd been digging up old memories, but he'd only gone over his previous points. This is all I know. It's not very much, but hopefully you can at least believe me. You sure how good we're coming up with stories to cover your ass? It's honestly impressive. Sai said that, but he didn't look like he disbelieved Cat Eye's explanation. He was most likely referring to everything else he'd said previously, with the sole intention to provoke him. If that didn't please you, there's not much else I can say. This is probably more than I am allowed to, actually. I see. Even though I could have seen Sai's playful behaviour as intriguing earlier, it had become off-putting. After shifting my thoughts to some of my childhood memories, the thought of getting out of the tower was much more appealing. Finding out who was responsible for the attack was a goal, but as long as the police had some way to recover the camera footage, they could handle that. They could have already captured the person responsible for all we know. Ashia's compensation was certainly a nice thought to keep in mind too. It was more important to keep an eye out for anyone doing anything suspicious, and now than once we got out, they constantly and baselessly accused anyone in the vicinity like Sai seemed to want to do. Anyway, what you all supposed to be investigating the building? I think it's time for that. We keep repeating this, but Naomi's disappearance gets weirder by the second. Yeah, we should go. I agree. Let's look through this floor first. That's where she was when the smoke appears, and it has plenty of disabled cameras. We made our way to hallway A, finally starting to inspect the huge building was an imposing task. A lot of time had already passed, so I had no idea what to think of Naomi's disappearance. She was either incapable of reaching us or didn't want to. How do we do it? Do we split up? No, let's make the situation clear. First, funny things can happen later. Let's enter every room in this hallway and then move on to the other one. After we're done with this floor, we'll move up one at a time. Yeah, let's begin there. Alina looked at the crystal room in front of the security room. It was the one labelled A1 on the map. Given the floor's layout, if there was someone who wanted to avoid being seen as long as we didn't split up, they could easily achieve that. There were 3 different ways to make it from one hallway to the other, so we would never be able to rule out a sneakingly moving culprit. Taking that same possibility in mind, though, the thought of splitting up was distressing. It was best to investigate together and hope that wouldn't happen. We were in front of the room we'd start with. Katai opened it, and yet again I felt the same recurring sensation of stepping in to a different world. A clean floor, walls and ceiling awaited us, just like in the room I'd looked in. There were many cabinets, presumably displaying different kinds of valuable gemstones. Were they covered? As Isla said, the interior of the cabinets wasn't visible. Velvet curtains, pretty as Sekimeiya's has once been, were neatly placed over all of them. Yes, this is something we do every morning, except on Sundays when the tower's closed. While at 9 AM the floor opens to the public, it isn't until 9:10 that the showcase cabinets are uncovered. This is done purely for dramatic effect, and honestly to give the visitors the impression they're about to witness something very valuable. Oh, can I? Yes, of course, let me raise them up for you. In the same manner that Katai might have seen it done daily through the cameras, he carefully rolled up every curtain, letting us see what they were hiding. Amazed as a little girl trapped in a building could be, Isla lit up when Katai uncovered the next mysterious interior. Sai looked at it with a similar face, even though I couldn't help but question it. The cabinets in these rooms were as different from the Sekimeiyas. They were lowered to the ground, and on top of them was a screen of glass that sheltered the gemstones. Wow, look at this black one, Mum. Isn't it pretty? I love it. Yes, it's one of my favourites so far. I wish you could wear it as a necklace. We were all glad Irina was with us and treated Isla as if they were in a normal visit, letting her feel comfortable. Shortly, Katai finished with every cabinet. They had all contained gemstones of different shapes and tones. Some also had a brief explanation below them, detailing where they'd been found along with the name of their finder. Most of them assured they'd once been in the mountains I was used to seeing in the background of Yushibana. Despite the events and my lack of interest, I spent some time looking at each one, immersing myself in them without even noticing. I didn't think it was the best way to spend our time, but everyone seemed to be doing the same. Do you like this one? Shiro was pointing at a tiny light blue jewel with round white stains on its smooth surface. She'd said it because I'd been looking at it for a while, and she knew that shade of blue was my favourite colour. I really do. I wouldn't mind going to the mountains someday if I can manage to find one of these. I'm sure it wouldn't be easy, but it'd be worth the effort. Yeah. After having talked about going back to our personal playground, I started to really look forward to the time where we visited again, spending a day trying to find a gem as pretty as that one. Can I see it again, Tanya? Are you talking to me? Yes, can I see your pendant? Bit confused, sure I took it out. I knew it. It's even prettier than anything here. What's with the name though? Tanya, that's you. It's for Tanzit. Oh, I see. I'll admit I'm a bit fascinated by these myself. Sai's voice sounded from behind as he peeked over my shoulder. I came here from my own volition after all. We shouldn't spend so much time doing this in the next rooms. We have other priorities. Yes, sorry Isla, but once we're done, we'll have more than enough time to revisit every room. You'll still let me see them though, right? Yes, we'll briefly look over them. We moved on to the next room, which looked almost identical. The same procedure was repeated. Katai uncovered every cabinet, and Isla had a few seconds to appreciate all of their contents. After we finished with it, Akira spoke. We really have to look at the inside of every cabinet. It's only slowing us down. Yeah, it doesn't take up a lot of time. And remember what Suripo said? He mentioned gems on this floor have been stolen. We need to find that room and see if there's something to notice. Oh yeah, it's true. He did say it happened in one of the furthest rooms. You're right, I'd forgotten about that, but it sounds very weird to me. What do these gems have to do with anything? It sounds like Ashia had already assumed they were the goal of the attack, which feels very off considering they don't even know how they were brought out. You mean to say they were probably something to divert their attention, right? I agree. If the plan is over or ended in failure, it could be that some kind of trick was used to get them outside, make them believe they were the goal, and with a lowered guard, steal the actual target, the Sekimeiya. Yeah, something like that, even though I can't really visualize how the plan would work. Before you assume that there's something to think about it which goes against it, what would that be? Well, the 2 vertical hallways in the event room were put out of commission with the smoke. If the gems were the goal, it could be only assumed that the event room was for some reason only attacked because it's the only way to go from the middle of one hallway to the other. What about hallway C? How that as a flaw? Even though the function of the smoke was certainly to disable the security cameras, the room those gems were stolen from wasn't ever subjected to the smoke according to what Katai was told us. This is very strange, don't you think? It outright implies that the room's security cam was never a factor they took into consideration. So if that were the case, why did they disable the others? What I mean to say is, if the robbery of those gems could have been executed without the need to release the smoke in the event room, and then the substance to cover the lenses of the security camera wouldn't have been needed. If being spotted by the security cameras in the room of the robbery wasn't an incident, it means the only other goal of the smoke was to provide a clear route to the outside. The event room in the opposite hallway wouldn't have been needed, and disabling the cameras would have definitely been pointless. This immediately indicates that the gems were never the goal, which breaks the effect. Maybe you're right, if they were the only goal, only one hallway in that very room would have been attacked. And you can't assume the smoke was released to make everybody nearby fall unconscious, because not all the rooms where people could have been were attacked. And yet they were brought outside in a suitcase before the exit closed. Only for the person to then be arrested immediately. I can't quite figure out what the whole deal is here, more so given the Sekimeiya is still with us. The people outside think the gems were the goal and the robbery was a failure. However, part of that relies on them not knowing the exact rooms that were attacked by the smoke. I'm sure more people will conclude what I'm saying once they enter the tower. If the culprit intended to pass these gems as a defeat goal, then the plan's lacking. The story ends with someone sneaking the Sekimeiya out as soon as the exit opened tonight. That'd be very stupid, not to mention that stealing the gems would have rendered useless, since the Ashia would quickly notice that the Sekimeiya has been stolen too, and the gems would ultimately return to Ashia, and the person who had them would be arrested. I hadn't taken those gems into consideration for any of my thoughts, but he was right. Hey Katai, I know you said this earlier, but are you sure the exit was sealed immediately after the alarm went off? Well, it's the first time the alarm has been activated, it's how it's programmed to work. Anything else would be pointless, really. Could it have been another malfunction? I was just thinking that perhaps Naomi brought the gems out. Naomi, but that should be impossible, right? Not if that malfunction actually occurred. When Suripo mentioned the person who brought them outside, he only said that it had been an individual. It could have been a woman, but I think he would have said it when we mentioned Naomi was with us. If the alarm's effects had been deleted, Suripo would have brought it up, or someone from the outside would have entered. It's true though that Naomi, the person who should be here, but isn't and knows the layout of the tower well, as a good candidate to have brought these gems out, acting out this ridiculous role of being purportedly arrested with a conspicuous suitcase. If this is what happened, targeting the event room too would make sense even if the goal was elsewhere. I was Naomi's location and she would have needed a way to escape. Oh, if that was what happened, targeting the event room too would have made sense, even if the goal was elsewhere. It was Naomi's location and she would have needed a way to escape. You're right, I hadn't thought of this, but I'm not convinced. Targeting both hallways still wouldn't make sense, and more importantly, it implies the plan only worked because the alarm's effects got deleted. That would have been no malfunction. Yeah, also we still don't know what actually triggered the alarm, and while I could be wrong, it really did seem to me like Naomi did fall unconscious in our room. Remember what Suripo said? If anyone was in front of the shutter as it closed, it would have stopped. It's possible it was the lead, which gave Naomi enough time to leave in, even though she was in the event room when the alarm played. That's true, but Suripo would have told us as well. Wait, no, I don't think that could have happened. Why not? When I heard the alarm, there was another sound too, much fainter. I just realised that must have been the shutter closing as it was rough and came from the lobby. That means the effect couldn't have been delayed, and it ended with a louder sound, which must have been hitting the floor. I'm pretty sure it went all the way without stopping. If that's true, it confirms Naomi's still here. Yeah. Is this a key? Ooh. I saw Shiraya staring at the floor, confused as where to direct her gaze. Oh, you're right. What is this doing here? When we went quiet, the two people who hadn't participated in the conversation spoke. They were a bit ahead of us, so we walked to them. After focusing on the point where they were staring, we saw what Isla had found. Next to the right wall was a small, rusty key. Isla needed to pick it up. Once in her hands, she showed it to us. Was this on the floor? Yes, I just saw it. There's no way we missed this until now, right? The colour is close to the floors and the lighting's bad. I say we did, since it took me a few seconds to see it. Really? It was right next to the event? More importantly, what's it for? Do you recognise it, Kato? No, I don't think I've ever seen this key before. Kato grabbed it to give it a closer look. It appeared very old and rusty, not the kind of key that would be used in a modern building. It's impossible this belongs here. I know it's an old building and there are keys I don't possess, but it must be for something else. Keys are not prohibited items in this tower. It's possible someone dropped it and didn't realise it. How would you not notice it? If you drop it here, the noise would alert you. For sure, which means that whoever dropped it knew that they did and they didn't pick it back up. It's a bit ridiculous to think that it had been left there purposely to indirectly pass on to someone or something of the sort. Given what we knew had happened so far, Sai's words made a lot of sense. You get what I mean, right? This key probably belonged to the culprit. As they were running against a timer that would trap them, this key was dropped. Naturally, they didn't waste time stopping to retrieve it. It could be a pretty important key if it's one the culprit was holding as they were committing a crime. I'll keep it safe and give it to the police as soon as I can. That's a good idea. You might be jumping to conclusions again, though. It could belong to an innocent person who rushed to escape from the tower. You think so? I'm not sure that's possible. I've gone over this. Why would an innocent person ever rush to escape? One reason would be if they saw smoke appearing out of nowhere. However, they would have fallen unconscious if they ran through this hallway. The other reason would be if they heard an unknown alarm, but this can also be ruled out because the alarm blocked off the exit. Naturally, this key doesn't belong to any of us, right? Nobody answered. He was saying that no innocent person aware of danger could have escaped through the hallway. If the key didn't belong to the culprit, it had to belong to someone who'd gotten trapped and we hadn't seen. Even Naomi didn't make sense as a candidate. I'd been with her up until the alarm had sounded. If someone had fallen unconscious there, they could have dropped the key and failed to realise it upon waking. Perhaps even the sound of the drop had been obfuscated by the alarm. Of course, that was very unlikely. I doubt this was here before the attack. There was a janitor cleaning the floor in the lobby, so I'm sure the hallways were clean today too. On the surface, that appeared to be a solid argument, but there was a way around it, and it involved something else I'd thought before. We didn't know for a fact the smoke in hallway A had been released at the same time as in the other two places. There was no reason to believe it hadn't been, but it also would have let one of Koto's claims be the truth. One part of me wanted to directly ask Katai's claims, but I held off. If someone had heard yells coming from the lobby or seen smoke coming through the door of the event room, they might have rushed out without stopping to retrieve their key. I recalled that when we'd been about to fall unconscious, I'd heard nothing but silence. I saw Isla in front of the next door. Even though it had been her discovery, she didn't seem very interested. The private revelations of the cabinet's contents were probably very exciting for her instead. Let's continue for now. If this was important for the culprit, it's likely they'll try and get it back, so I'll make sure to keep it safe until we get out. We don't trust you! We accepted that and moved on. The next room was no different from the previous. Katai went ahead and began to make sure nothing had been stolen from its cabinets. Sai approached me when I was separated from the others, anticipating his reason. I was first to speak. Do you still doubt Katai? I think he did a good job proving his sincerity. Oh, of course I still do. I agree he's pretty good at lying. You already realised he was never in the security room, right? Why are you defending him? I looked at Katai. He was putting up with Ida and acting interested in the gems he's presumably seen hundreds of times. Are you certain he wasn't? He couldn't have been there after the alarm went off. I checked the time needed for the computer to suspend and that confirmed it. The only other possibility is that he was there and lied about using the computer, but that doesn't make it any better. Have you considered the computer time might not have been accurate? The computer time? Yeah, if it was wrong, Katai could have had the time to be there without lying. To then lie about how much time he spent outside her? Yeah, I know, maybe you're right and there's no other explanation. I have considered the computer time being wrong. Whoops. And not only that, Sai raised his sleeve. Underneath it, there was a digital wristwatch. I always wear this. It doesn't seem like there are wall clocks anywhere, so the time display on the computer is the only source we have available. Besides my wristwatch, that is. My time and the computer's are the same. I see, so it can't be it either. Well, as I said, I didn't consider that computer time might have been wrong, but rather that something went way further than that. Someone went way further than that. Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, that should be the only way out Katai has. Yeah, if someone messed with my wristwatch while I was unconscious, they could have made me back up the computer's time. That's going too far, though. After all, one would only do this to frame Katai and to not have me in the room. But it's too ridiculous to consider it seriously. They need to know that Katai would say everything he has, to turn around and contradict it with the computer's suspended state, risking the possibility of not noticing it. And not only that, but it's also something that only works for the people who got trapped. This wouldn't mean anything if you brought it up outside, so imagining that someone would set it up isn't reasonable. And Katai, who didn't fall unconscious, would have called out the wrong time. Since he didn't do it, if it truly was wrong, he must have been the one to modify it. Then, as an effect, his truthful claims would have sounded impossible. That's still ridiculous, and it doesn't clear his name at all. He also let us talk to Siripo, who could have mentioned the time at any moment. Why would Katai lie about having been in the security room? Do you actually think he's responsible? Heavily involved in some way. There's no way he's not hiding anything or looking to gain something. So you don't believe his story about how the Sekimeiya was found. You were accusing him of lying about that too. No, I do believe everything he said there. I'm just strengthening his motive further. I still think the Sekimeiya has to be a cause of all this. It has to be, right? Now, don't you find it strange that a simple security member would know all of that? He said it in a desperate time because he wanted to earn our trust, which is why he relied on factual truth to lessen our suspicion. But what I think he did was change his own perspective. I'm telling you this in case you think I'm missing something, but I think all he did was join his version with what Suripo told us to form an accurate story and pass it off as something Ashia told him. I don't follow. I'm saying he could be the original finder of Sekimeiya. He didn't know about what Suripo told us before he did, otherwise he would have said it all to gain our trust. Once he knew about Suripo's factual story, he joined in his own knowledge with it to make us believe he truly works in the tower. The way he detailed some things were very questionable. He knew the exact location where the Sekimeiya was found, and everything he told us information the original finder would have known after hearing Suripo's story. That may be true, but it sounds like a pretty big assumption, and didn't he say the finder was already paid? I'll tell you one of the theories I formed. It's all speculation, yes, but I think it can make sense given who's behind this already went pretty far with the smoke. I haven't told you this since it might not mean anything. You and I both showed up early and we were at the front of the line for a while in front of the hallway door. Yeah, we didn't have a way to check the time, but we definitely were there for a few hours. Alright, so approximately 8 AM I saw Katai in the lobby. The reason why I started questioning him so quickly was because when I first saw him, he was wearing normal clothes. Of course, back then I didn't think anything of it. I didn't know what he did either, I just saw him for a few seconds, and if anything, I'm certain he was never part of the line. Considering anything, I think this is one of the ways everything could have played out. Take whatever you want from it. The person claiming to be Katai found the Sekimeiya a couple of weeks ago. He contacted the Ashia family and gave their interest. They bought Katai's discovery. At no point did Katai expect they'd set up so much advertisement for his own find. It's possible Ashia said things that were wrong only to draw people in, and perhaps not being credited as a finder bothered him. As a motive output, it's pretty plain, but at some point Katai could have realised the value of what he found and be paid for had increased exponentially. That's why he designed a plan to retrieve something he thought he'd been cheated out of. The scale of the attack seems too big to be designed by a normal person who found a rare gemstone in a mountain, but many things line up nicely. At 8 AM on the day the Sekimeiya was going to be shown to the public, he entered the tower. This is why it happened during daylight. Zin, for once, not behind her. They had tried to steal the Sekimeiya once and failed. I don't know how his plan worked, so I can't tell if the alarm was an intended factor of it, but regardless of this person meant to meet with the actual Katai Kuji. I don't know how, since the doors hadn't opened to the public yet, but he wasn't in the lobby shortly after I saw him. By speaking to Katai, he could have learned a lot about the alarm's existence and method to contact the outside. The way he learned that information isn't important. What matters is he put on Katai's clothes, and then he proceeded to hide Katai somewhere out of the camera's reach. I could have done this any number of ways, but Katai was charged for keeping track of the security cameras, so obviously no one could have seen him carry off a body if that body was supposed to be the one seeing it. Along with the clothes, he also took the security room key, then he released the smoke in the two hallways in the event rooms through some method I'm unaware of. It's likely he knew he'd get trapped by doing so. He acted as if he's found us and played the role of a security member to justify his presence in the tower. Naomi, it's possible he hid her body while she was unconscious. He'd be the one to have a reason because Naomi would have revealed he doesn't work in the tower. By saying everything was confidential, he managed to avoid explaining anything he didn't know. He lied about having been in the security room since he said he'd been carrying out his plan of his. This is why he knew things only a person inside the room with all the monitors would have known without actually having been there. Suripo said it clearly the security staff, upon hearing the alarm, would stay in the room and relay information through the installed microphone, but Katai told us he left it because he didn't know about that before talking to Suripo. He said he used the microphone while we were unconscious, but I'm certain he was lying. I don't know why he let us talk to the outside, but it's possible he had something to gain from that. Maybe he wanted everyone outside to think that Katai Kuji really is in the tower, and that everything in here is going well. Maybe he wanted to make sure the beat gemstones worked and tricked Ashia. I don't know how all this works yet. As I said earlier, that part of the plan seemed very poorly constructed. It almost feels unrelated to what he did, but that could be it. Anyway, it all comes down to he had no way to get to the Sekimeiya without spending 12 hours here, so he's intentionally spending 12 hours here. I don't know how this plan ends. I don't know how he intends to get the Sekimeiya out once the exit opens, but consider the following. If he manages to do it, no one will miss him. None of us will know who he actually was. I'm only speculating that he was the original finder of the Sekimeiya to give us an easy answer to the questionable knowledge he's had since the start. Once he makes it out, only the Sekimeiya will be missing. Katai Kuji will still be here since he's where the person talking to Isla out now hid him. This ghost of a person will have escaped the real target. After saying it all out loud, I know it sounds pretty absurd, but whatever this plan is, it has to be far from over. There are a lot of things that don't make sense, and somehow the Sekimeiya is sitting in its cabinet as if nothing happened. Also, one last thing. We only think that what we saw is a Sekimeiya because Katai told us. So the plan could already be at a higher stage. The real Sekimeiya could have been in a place while we were asleep. This could be another reason why Naomi's presence had to be taken care of, as she would expose that illusion. And I'm done. What do you think? Do you agree with anything? Everything? Really? I was looking at the floor and had been listening intently to everything expressionlessly. Katai remained engaged with Isla while her mother looked on from behind. Akira and Shiroya were leaning against the wall, waiting to move on. Before I responded, we all walked to the next room, A4. I waited for Katai and Isla to become uncovering the cabinets before resuming the conversation with Sai. I don't think I can directly object to anything you said. Admittedly, I did think Sai's theory was ridiculous. It didn't have to be wrong. I'd come to a similar idea myself, but some of his assumptions were a bit of a reach. It was Sai's way to enjoy the incident, though, and I cared about it as well. There was no way it had been an accident. Many things indicated that nothing had happened coincidentally. The day, the smoke locations, the alarm, the recurring Zen events, Naomi. Before anything else, there were two options to choose from. The plan failed, probably because of the new alarm, or the plan hadn't ended yet. If whatever this plan is hasn't ended, it's almost certain that a culprit must be here with us. Who would that be, and what do they intend to do next? There weren't that many possibilities. Everything's been pointed to Katai, and there's just not one way to construct it. If he's really a security member, he probably wouldn't have had an easy time setting this up. If he's not, Sai's theory is valid too. He's definitely the most suspicious person here. Unless I choose to doubt Sai, it's almost a guarantee that Katai lied about having been in the security room during the attack. There could be many reasons behind the lie, though. If Katai is actually innocent, a similar plan could be worked around anyone who got trapped. Of course, I will rule myself and Shiroya out. We've come here innocently and never expected anything like this to happen. Shiroya and I have spent our entire lives together, and I know she'd never think of doing such a thing, not even with some crazy motive against the Ashia family she dislikes. I myself don't suffer from memory loss or split personalities, nor do I have a particular interest in ruining my life after failing a robbery attempt. Akira was the last person in our group. Out of us 7, I feel he's the easiest person to suspect to Katai. He claimed not to care much about today's event, but was here from the very beginning. Earlier's behaviour was clearly off, but it's gotten much better since we woke up. It could be he's letting the time pass so his plan can conclude. Since he stands out from the rest of us, though, he's an easy target to blame for a plan Cyanide concocted. The same could be said for Irina and Isla, even though it sounds less likely. It's too naive to rule them out because of Isla's age. There was a well-thought-out plan could take advantage of that to lower our guard. Out of the 6 of us that were waiting for the event, only they have their early arrival justified. Isla's the only one who seemed to care about the event, but I can only truly rule out Shiroya myself. And Sai, I don't believe he's the culprit, but he's even crazier than he seems. He could have designed the whole thing and then messed with me for entertainment, maybe even to divert my suspicion and prevent my interference. He could be trying to manipulate me into thinking whatever is convenient for him. I don't think that's likely, though. Similarly, he might have determined I'm not a likely suspect. There are 2 more options: Naomi and an unknown person. Gonna need a drink after this. Need some more tea. If Naomi wants to let the 12 hours run out to execute the last part of her plan, then not showing herself to us is probably a good idea. She's been hidden from the very beginning and will spend all the remaining time unspotted, able to move by herself whenever she needs to. There's got to be a good hiding spot somewhere in this huge building. And using Naomi as the culprit puts the meaning behind the alarm's trigger. Suripo said that the only way to activate it was by breaking open the Sekimeiya cabinet, and when I heard the alarm, Naomi was the one next to it. If she silently broke it in a way she knew would work, she could have covertly trapped us. Then when we looked at the cabinet, we failed to recognise what triggered the mechanism. Naomi must have avoided falling unconscious and made sure her trick wouldn't be noticed. Why would she do this? Could it be that she made it seem as if something else triggered the alarm to make it look like everything was a malfunction? She could have had something to gain. The fact that the alarm went off right after Naomi had unlocked the cabinet with her key also leads me to think that the source of the alarm had to be something else. However, this could be done purposefully to make the 3 of us eventually say that by the time the alarm had gone off, there'd been no reason to force the cabinet open. After all, there's no way Naomi could have known I'd stayed conscious for enough time to hear the alarm. Then it could have been ruled as a malfunction, which could have allowed other things to also appear as malfunctions. But if Naomi is innocent, is there more than one option behind her disappearance? Unless she woke up ahead of time and saw the culprit, the only person that could have had a clear motive would have been Katai. She could still be trapped and walking around, but I'm not sure why she wouldn't have shown herself already if she's nothing to do with the attack. Is it actually possible Naomi is currently outside the tower? This would mean that the alarm had a delayed effect, and that Naomi's not innocent at all. I'm pretty sure what I heard in the event room was the shutter, but I can't totally be sure. The only way she could be outside is if Naomi's a culprit, otherwise surely Shiripo would have said that she made it out safely when we brought up her name. The only way this couldn't happen is Naomi was the individual with the suitcase whose identity was kept a secret. The unknown person option was basically the same, but better. After all, with Naomi, we'd know the identity of the culprit by the end. However, an unknown person has stayed with us, somehow plans to sneak out with the Sekimeiya when the time comes. We'll have no way to know who they were. The lobby doesn't have security cameras. When everyone evacuated, someone hid behind the reception desk. We're into the staircase to the mechanical room. Once the smoke faded, they hid in a better place, maybe after moving Naomi's body. Maybe they were in one of the rooms in a hallway, and that's where they made sure we couldn't look at recorded footage. Once this is all listed out, there are a few extra options, like two people working together. For example, if Naomi and Katai were working together, one would cover what doesn't make sense if the other is working alone. The two staff members could have easily designed this internal attack thanks to the knowledge they possess. Katai made us think the Sekimeiya we saw was the real deal. Now Naomi can do as she pleases, since she'll be constantly covered by Katai, who will guide all of us as the most knowledgeable person. Perhaps it's unlikely, since he had no problem staying behind in the security room when we went to investigate. I'm sure there are many theories I can construct, but it would all be pointless. Everything would still be guesswork. Surprisingly, the conclusion I drew was that if the plan was still being carried out, Sai's theory was close to what I believed to be likely. That's the last of my tea. I just got tea leaf. So we should end soon because I'm out of hydrates. We had to know what had triggered the alarm. It would clean up multiple doubts and remove possibilities such as the culprit having already escaped. Maybe what you said is the most likely possibility. A lot of things point to Katai being suspicious, and he knew about the alarm from the start. That could mean he's the most likely person to be carrying out a plan that involves waiting for the alarm's timer. Yes, I agree. Either him or Naomi, but with the scenario I constructed, Naomi's already been taken care of. Most things are, actually. I don't know how the smoke was released, what triggered the alarm, and how Katai plans to disappear with the Sekimeiya. It's also good to note that regardless of the method, a member of security staff like him could easily design a way to release the smoke. It'd be wise to keep track of him at all times. He stayed alone early on in the security room of all places. I'm very curious to know how he tends to make this plan work. He'd probably make sure that we don't come across Naomi or the body of the real Katai, if I'm also right about that. You seem pretty excited. Bet, aren't you? Aren't you looking forward to knowing which theory ends up being the correct one? Or maybe to find out that we're both incorrect? What if this is all bigger than we think, or just a coincidental accident? I want to make a lot of theories and have the best one turn out to be right. That would be great. For example, think about this. Everything we thought about has been in part based on the call with Suripo. However, our main assumption right now is that Katai is the culprit. You brought up a good point earlier. Why did Katai say that we communicate with the outside? You're right, if he's a security member while also being the culprit, if he hadn't mentioned it, he would have been incredibly suspicious after 12 hours passed. But if I'm right and he doesn't work here, it wasn't very smart of him to have brought it up voluntarily. You're saying that what Suripo told us could have been planned? Exactly, he spoke very highly, isn't it? What if he was speaking very highly of himself? The group he works for belonged to Katai. He was dressed as a policeman and was in a car next to the tower, ignored by everyone around it. If there weren't tricks in the video, he must have been a real policeman. Wouldn't things make sense if Zen was involved in the police? I mean, or it was just a complete setup. And, you know, that program hidden deep within the computer folders could have been another factor of his plan designed by Zen. The new Ashia was working on a mechanism to defeat them, so they created this plan to keep their superiority afloat, assuming part of what he told us was the truth. As soon as he began to explain stuff, my suspicions about Katai immediately lessened. After all, what the policeman was saying matched up well with the information Katai had given us. Now, if they were working together, made-up details would appear like the absolute truth, and they'd make all of Katai's subsequent claims sound authentic. Suripo mainly spoke to Katai. If they were following a script, they could confuse us greatly. Suripo is the only reliable source we think we have. And after he was done, the power conveniently went out. Not only that, but Katai was unable to contact him again. How believable is that, really? Did the Ashia family really revoke his authority knowing they leave us incommunicado for 12 hours? Wouldn't it be exciting if we're in the very middle of such a plan? Would you stop Zen if you saw through everything? I'm excited about being caught up with this, I can say that much, but if I get the chance to take these guys down, I absolutely would. I won't get them let them get away with this shit. I see. Me? I'm just curious. I can't wait to know how this plan ends. Certainly there's still a while until then. Maybe they need these 12 hours for something? The number of hours is something both Kata and Saripo said, so it'd be strange if it turned out to be wrong. Hi, Apex! We'll have to see what happens. I suppose so, but if it's an ongoing plan, they won't make it obvious. If they're trying to trick the Ashia family, we might get tricked too. This is why I've been trying to think about it, to avoid being fooled. I didn't feel like saying anything else. A part of me thought that everything Sai was saying entailed pointless danger. I related to the interest, but not so much to his approach. In our situation, there was no reason for us to be in danger. It was something between Ashir and Zen, and we'd just been caught up in the middle of it. Letting everything happen without giving our own input to strangers seemed like the smarter course of action. However, trying to piece stuff together on the side would probably not do any harm. Though I hadn't reacted, what Sai had said was intriguing. I'd let Suripo's words influence my thoughts with no opposition, but it was true that Katai had been the one who let us hear them. The first thing he'd said that Ashir had instructed them to talk to us without proving it at all. It hadn't sounded all that strange, but instead of telling the police what to let us know, Ashir could have said everything directly. Suripo had said that Ashir had told them about the communication method. Initially, the other side should have been picked up by Ashir, who had supposedly decided otherwise. While there was room for suspicion, thinking he might have been an actual corrupt policeman was probably absurd. If he had fed us false information, he would be exposed after we got out. Okay. I could feel my head getting cloudy. The tiredness was coming back, so I tried to cool off. Okay, so we had After Dark, Cave In, Window Net, and now Blue Light. No, now we're in Undercurrent. So we're looking in A5. God, we've got a ton of these damn rooms to do. Three and a half hours. I should probably stop because I'm getting a little croaky. So we will have to not find out what's happening. So this was originally a Kickstarter game. It's not yet out on consoles, and I don't know when it'll be out, but I had a key for it from ID, so I decided to play some of it on stream. I'm intrigued. I'm definitely intrigued. I might play some more, but leave that particular save so that if I decide to come back to it on stream, I have the save we left off at. But yeah, that's the Sekimeiya Spun Glass. And I'm probably pronouncing all of the names wrong because, you know, we didn't actually finish chapter 1 yet, so we have no achievements in it. Though, by the numbers, one person got that, 2 people got that. Oh no, wait, hang on, that's gonna 50%. 1, 3, and 5, maybe. So not many people have played it. But anyone that's on the Ideate Exports code list would have gotten a code. And I know Carnage has played some. I don't know whether he did a video or anything, but he got like 8 achievements, or they got 8 achievements. Should not assume pronouns. But anyway, I have to stop talking. So yeah, don't know when it's coming out on Xbox, but it did say it was some kind of time loop. I'm sure it said it was a time loop, unless I'm imagining this. There are multiple endings. Apparently there are tips. I obviously haven't gotten to that part. And, you know, we're not even past the first hour in this game. Where was my press information? Line search and jump. Okay, maybe there's not a time loop. Maybe I'm making an assumption. Let me look at the Kickstarter, because that'll be where to look. Campaign. Mystery thriller visual novel. twists and questions that will keep you theorizing, second guessing, and searching for the ultimate truth. It's over 40 hours of mystery. And we've done 3.5. But yeah, you can search for and jump to any point in the game, which we did when we were looking at the dust thing accidentally, but you know. Where have I taken time loop from then? Maybe it was that wiki page? No, it's a linear visual novel. Okay, why did I assume time loop? Honestly, I don't know. I may have made an assumption. I don't want to look at any of the forum threads that same. Apparently you can jump around in the story. Maybe that's what I took it from. Yeah, maybe I just made an assumption because there are multiple endings. Maybe it's a bit like the Zero Escape ones where you need to unlock stuff and then jump back and then you can, or like Raging Loop where you had to find keys. I don't know. I won't know until I get to a point where it's not just me reading from a giant script. But yeah, I don't know. Mondays are not great days for streams. We occasionally do a Monday stream, but generally Mondays are just exhausting. So I'll definitely be back on Tuesday. Definitely be back on Tuesday, 8 PM UK time. Might be slightly later at 9, depending on if my coaching that was aborted last week goes ahead this week. I don't know, that might be further delayed. So I will let you know in the Discord if it's going to be a 9 PM rather than 8 PM start. And yeah, we'll have more promo games and stuff. I mean, what I might do is keep the save that I've got for stream, and then what I might do is play more and then see if it's like, if we get more from, you know, another 3, 4, 5, however many hours of streaming, or whether I'm just going to leave it here and say if you want to find out, then, well, it's out on Steam and hopefully it'll be coming to console soon. Either which way, thank you to ID at Xbox for providing me with the code, and hopefully the Trinitite team will be able to release this properly. Anyway, hopefully that is a nice sort of insight into the game, and I'm certainly intrigued, and I'm going to be playing more. But anyway, thanks everyone for being here. Hopefully you have a great rest of your weekend. I've been Jo, otherwise known as Angel SK, and I bid you good night, evening, good afternoon. Forgotten what time I'm in.